Okay, good evening, everybody. We are going to call this meeting to order. Due to the state of emergency, it is 7:30. Due to the state of emergency declared by the government of the state of New Jersey and the United States regarding COVID-19, the June 28th, 2021 board meeting is being held via video conference and in person. The board meeting may be viewed live via the video conference or attended in person. See link below. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act due to the state of emergency declared by the government of the state of New Jersey and the United States regarding COVID-19. This board meeting is being held via video conference and in person. Electronic and regular notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and/or Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office, and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Here.
Mr. Cass,
Here.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Luer,
Present.
Mr. Kim,
Here.
Mrs. Gould, Mrs. Wagner.
Present. Mrs. Gould is out of state today. Okay, if you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a number of special presentations. Charlene Peterson is kind enough to be here from New Jersey School Boards and is going to go through our goal setting. Take it away, Charlene. Thank you for coming.
Guess I'm moving over here to be in front of the microphone, right? Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here and to be part of this board retreat. As you know, for the board talking about its goal setting, and this is something that the board has made, to be an ongoing practice. Recognizing that we have been working off the strategic plan to help formulate our annual district goals. For the benefit of those who are listening today, the goals that we're talking about are the goals that will be the priority for the year. The board will typically set anywhere from 3 to 5 goals that we consider to be so important to moving the district forward that we are going to hold the superintendent accountable. They're part of the evaluation, and it involves everyone in the district. We are working together tonight to help establish the what are those priorities for the year, then recognizing then that the administration will develop action plans that will tell us how they're going to accomplish the what that we have established. And then, it should be kind of a stair-step approach that these goals then should surface in building goals and staff goals, that the whole district should be working together in alignment based on the priorities that are established, recognizing that we would be using the strategic plan to help guide us. But also, I think finding in at least some of the goal settings that I've done already so far this year in other districts, that this year is somewhat different in that just coming back from COVID and the work that's necessary to do that has, kind of taken priority in terms of what the focus needs to be, and almost in a way has kind of helped, kind of set the stage for this year's goals somewhat. So recognizing that, your administration has put some information together about a recap for last year, and then some recommendations for consideration for this year. So I am going to turn it over to the administration then now to go through that.
Thank you, Charlene. Thanks for coming again. It's great working with you. Every year we go through our goals recap of what we did the previous year, and then we talk about what we're going to do in the future. So the first slide, if you don't mind, Ricky, move to the second slide on there about our strategic plan. So our 5-year strategic plan is complete in 2022. And I've already reached out to Charlene about working on a plan, the next 5-year plan from 22 and on from there. Our first goal, Dr. Cullis will discuss, has to do with increasing achievement. And then I'll come back and explain our progress on goal 2.
Good evening. So one of our goals was to look at our student achievement, and with this year, identify if there were any gaps and what we're going to do if there are gaps. What is going to be our plan moving forward? So because we have not done or haven't participated in the NJ SLA assessment for the last 2 years, that is really the assessment that we use to monitor how well students are proceeding towards meeting the goals, the standards. We worked with a company called Linkit, so we purchased their product and spent a year in training with them to be able to administer benchmarks to students that are very similar to those state assessments, but also identify down to very minute details and skills and knowledge that students need to know. And that way we'd be able to find which ones they were missing. So we did a lot of work with Linkit. Our students did take 3 benchmarks this year in language arts and math. And then we use that, and this goal specifically about math, we looked at the math data throughout the year. We came up with where students were falling. I can give you just initially the 6th through 8th graders to give you an idea. 87% of the students met an achievement goal. They were able to meet proficiency or to move up a level if they started lower than proficiency. So most of our students were able to meet those marks. However, some of our students were not. So now it's a matter of what our plan's going to be. Our articulation team met the first 2 days out of school, and every grade level met with 1 grade below and 1 grade above to make the plan of what skills our students were showing that they still needed work on. Our plan moving forward is not to necessarily using the word remediate. We're not going to go back and redo units. So let's say there was a 3rd grade unit and some students did not do well on that unit. We're not going to go back and teach that entire unit over. We identified which students and which skills all of the students need and which skills just select students need, so that we can keep moving forward. The term is accelerating. So the students will accelerate next year. They'll continue on with the next grade level's curriculum. And then when they get to that unit that identifies a skill that was lacking the year before, we're going to reteach that skill right before, like if it was in division or something at that. So that's our plan moving forward. We're still going to be using Linkit next year. We're going to continue with them. We also purchased Intervention Manager, another module with them, to be able to track those students even more closely. Questions from the board?
The second goal was to create and execute a plan for the 2020-2021 school year in all aspects for online, hybrid, and/or in-person educational program due to COVID crisis. And that really covered pretty much all of our strategic goals. So we did create our plan. We had our reopening committee. The Board of Education approved our phase 1 opening on 8/10, so August 10th, and then phase 2 on April 12th. That phase 2 added an additional hour approximately to the in-person instruction. All of our plans were reviewed by the Department of Health and Department of Ed. Everything's been posted on the website, and our phase 2 documents have been posted as well. There's a website created, and it has a link on the front page. Next slide, please. The next slide is for our 4 possible goal topics. These are not goals. These are the topics that our goals may come from. And as usual, we like to just put out a few things from the administration and discuss them with the board and with Charlene present. So the first one would be to successfully transition all students and staff back to 100% in-person instruction. 2, create and implement a plan to provide services to students to address learning and social emotional needs that may arise from the pandemic. 3, provide a robust summer program to address the learning and emotional needs of students. And number 4 is pretty much the same goal that we've had, is to increase achievement for all students who are not meeting grade level benchmarks. And those are our topics. And now I'd like to turn it back over to Charlene to discuss with the board.
Sure. So recognizing, and if we want to go back and leave those topics so that the board, can have them in front of them. So we would use this then to serve as the basis of, what we would consider to be the priorities, and then, can take them and develop them into actual goal statements. We don't necessarily need to wordsmith them tonight, but, ideally we would come to an agreement on what we think those, say, 3 or 4 areas are. So, recognizing what you see here, is everyone in agreement that the successful transition of all the students and staff back to, 100% in-person instruction, is everyone in agreement that that needs to be a goal for the district for this year? Yes. So I'm going to just go ahead and circle that. So recognizing then, and like I said, that some of these things are kind of inherent in the work that we need to do to be prepared for this year. So it was also, a similar type thing that I've been seeing about the social emotional needs, and, recognizing that, more so than ever, that is also, surfacing as a goal in the districts. And with some districts, and I don't know what your thought is about also including staff, not just the students, and saying that it definitely is more of a priority for staff this year as well too. So I don't know, as a group, if you agree that that needs to be a goal, and if you do agree that staff needs to be included in that goal.
I mean, my feeling would be, we even use the word school community, to encompass everybody.
Agree.
Okay, good. So then that'll take into consideration any stakeholders that would work with that school. Great. The next one here was the summer program to address the learning and emotional needs of students. From the board's perspective, if you know what your thought is about that. I mean, that can be considered a tactic under accomplishing one of the goals. It can be, I guess, without really knowing the comprehensiveness of it, whether it would be a goal itself. But I'll leave it up to the board for what your thoughts are.
Are we talking about?
Before we do that, could we hear a little bit from Dr. Cullis on the program that we have?
Sure, that would be helpful.
So we started today. We have a large program, the largest we've ever had. We have 320 students that are coming K through 7, and it's covering academic needs as well as social emotional needs. And we have both our students that have it in their IEP to have an extended school year, as well as general education students whose teachers have identified them as needing a boost for the summer. So it's running for 6 weeks, 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. So we have a large group coming. It's very exciting. They were excited today. And I know that when I helped students to their cars, I heard them saying that they were having a great time. So that was good news. But we have a lot of fun activities planned besides just the academic piece. Normally our summer program is just solely academic, but this year we really felt that the social emotional learning was a big part. So we created themes for each week to make it more of a campy feel. We have assemblies and activities going on. We have the therapy dogs coming every week. So we have a lot of additional activities going on, social skills groups and so forth that we don't usually have.
Would you talk a little bit about the enrichment and the woodworking?
Yes. So in addition to the academic pieces, every day students have an enrichment. That could be art, music, and the biggest one is the woodworking, which is very exciting and a big draw to the program. In fact, many of our older students said that the reason that they agreed to let their parents sign them up was because they were going to get to do woodworking every day. So a few days a week, they are working with a program that we purchased, and we trained our teachers today, and they will start with 2nd grade through 7th grade. We'll be doing woodworking a few days a week. So they're building, birdhouses and keepsake boxes and so forth. But it's really about learning how to, there's a lot of skills inherent in using hand tools. And it's really about that self-esteem building, collaborative work, and hands-on learning that they're not necessarily doing when they're doing the reading and the writing. So that's an addition.
I actually went to check out the training today at the annex. The teachers were really excited.
I do have to say, and one of the teachers was a science teacher at the middle school. She said she was very impressed with the program, and it was probably they were hesitant. They didn't know what it was going to be like, but they felt the curriculum and the quality of the tools, the quality of the wood and everything was so well laid out that they just felt like they could teach it tomorrow. So
Okay.
I was excited about that.
So this board goal is for this year then. It's not, we're not talking about a board goal for the next summer.
It starts July 1st,
July 1
but this
to June
program started
30th,
2 days
yeah.
early.
Thank you. Yep.
Goes through August 5th.
And Dr. Coles, how many students do we typically have in our extended school year?
About between 130 and 160. So we have a lot more. I mean, a lot. And the great thing is, another real big benefit is that we now have so many students at each grade level that our ESY program and our Gen Ed program are mixed. So it's really an inclusive program, which is really what it's supposed to be, that students have the opportunity to work with all of their peers.
Another thing that was pretty nice, but the way it worked out was for childcare for parents, we were able to provide an hour lunch program where we supervise children during lunch. And then in the afternoon, if the parents sign up for additional enrichment program, there was a cost for that other part. It wasn't funded by the board. But we have several people taking advantage of that. So basically from Monday through Thursday for 6 weeks, actually, sorry, it's 5 weeks. There's 1 week where that other program doesn't run. Students are being supervised in a program from 8:30 in the morning till 3 or 3:30 p.m.
Okay, so after having heard that, is the board in agreement then that that is something that you would like to, leave as a priority or as a goal?
I personally feel that just from a goals perspective, we've got board goals, district goals, merit goals. It's like goals after goals after goals. So I think in general, the board, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but we have tried to consolidate the amount of goals we have. So this has nothing to do with taking away from the ESY program and the amount of work that's gone into it. But I actually feel it falls nicely as an action item or as a specific action under goal number one, the proposed goal number one. And it's a big part of it. It's a huge part of it. But that's just my kind of feeling, only because I like to consolidate the amount of goals that we have.
Is everyone else in agreement?
I would agree, yes.
Okay. And then what about your traditional student achievement goal that the board has of increased achievement for all students who are not meeting grade level benchmarks?
Absolutely. We can't.
I actually feel differently about that.
Okay.
I
I'd
think
like to hear why.
to me, we always do it, right? We're always going to do that, whether that's a goal or not, we're going to do it. And I think that this year, there's so many important goals coming out of COVID that's where the focus needs to be. And it's all academic and social emotional. It includes that already, that I'm okay with leaving it on. I don't, but once again, in the effort of reducing the amount of goals we have, I would be in favor of kind of saying, we always do it. We're going to continue to do it. Dr. Cullis does it every day. That's what she does. So that's just my opinion, but I'm okay either way.
Yeah, I feel the exact opposite, only because as an organization whose priority number one is student achievement, I don't think we can leave it off. So that's.
I think it falls under the first one too, though.
Agreed. Actually, look, all these others fall under the first one. Honestly, at the end of the day, I think we could roll them all into number one. So
Yeah, I'm okay with leaving it, guys. I am okay with leaving it.
Yeah, I'm looking at these as part of the job. I mean, you go back a couple of years ago, obviously COVID, getting kids back to school wasn't part of the job. But today, they successfully transitioned all students and staff back to 100% in-person instruction. So how can we possibly fail that goal? Well, we didn't meet that goal. I mean, that's part of the culture. That's part of the fabric of what we need to do every day for next year. So I don't see that as a goal. I see it as a part of the job for everybody. And yeah, the only thing here is, I always see goals as something extra, something above and beyond the job. And it, enhances what we do, makes things better, and it's measurable. So we can know if we're successful now. So, we already do a summer program. Is this going to be tweaked a little bit? That would be the goal. You're going to look for a special outcome, something different than we're getting, the results we're getting now. And the increase in achievement for all students who are not meeting grade level benchmarks. So that's be something that's done all the time. And I also agree with Mike too. You want to keep these goals to maybe one or two, either consolidate them or come out with something just that's, again, above and beyond what we're supposed to be doing every day.
Hey, Don, just going back to my initial comment real quick. I agree with you if these were merit goals, right? Because the merit goals that we give for Dr. Forte and Dr. Cullis should be above and beyond. But I think, and Charlene, I would lean on you for this. District goals, I think, are just, yes, they're things we are going to do, but it's just an emphasis we want to place on, hey, this is the board's opportunity to say, Dr. Cullis, Dr. Forte, administration, these are the things that are really important to us right now. But I agree with you, Don, wholeheartedly on the amount of goals and keeping it consolidated to less is more, because we just sometimes, I think that's one, we'll get to the board self-evaluation, but that's one thing we always find is that it's hard for us to keep up with the amount of goals we have in addition to everything else we do as a board. So.
And I will echo that with Mike, that remember, these are the umbrella goals, that this is like the most general, and then every level that Dr. Forte and myself and Damaris, we have goals under that, then the principals have goals, then the supervisors have goals, and then the teachers have goals, but everything is the umbrella. So it just gets more and more specific as the levels go down. Right? So if you put a really specific goal at the top, I'm not sure how that feeds down all the way to the teacher, because they're the ones that get, everybody has to write goals. And so it's based upon whatever you decide, their goals and their work that they do, even in their professional development, their personal professional development plans is based on that goal.
And I think also to support what you said, Mike, as well, that it is sending a message. So while we recognize that this is the work, this is the task, it would get done, it's sending a clear message that this is the priority, this is the focus. And from the board's perspective, this is what we think, that this is so important that we are going to make sure that we're holding the superintendent accountable, not just saying it's something that needs to get done, but it's now going to be part of your evaluation and we're going to hold you accountable. So this is just kind of a way to send that message as to what that direction is. I know, similar to what we've talked about a little bit in the summer program, I don't know if there are other things that from the administrative standpoint that you can share in terms of the first goal with talking about the transition of getting everyone back and the social and emotional needs of things that perhaps are different or new than what you have done in the past, or things that you from an administrative standpoint are planned to focus on, so the board has a clear understanding of what the expectations can be for those goals. I don't know if there's anything that you can add in terms of focuses or priorities specifically for this year.
So while you guys are thinking about that, I just want to say to the board that if you are looking to decrease the number of goals up there, I would say the opposite. I would say number 1 feeds into number 4. I would say number 4 is something that we keep, and that, our educational experts, the administration has stated that in-person education is what's best 5 days a week, every day for the students. So that would feed into, the achievements of all students rather than the other way around. It's a matter of semantics, but if you're looking to get rid of goals, that's the one I would get rid of.
It's funny though, because I see it the exact opposite way. Only because I think that as we, and I'm okay either way, but like to me, number 4 is very specific to academics and it's benchmark data, right? It's data driven. It's focused on skill sets that students have and where we focus academically. To me, 1 and 2 are way bigger. I mean, you could almost make social emotional a separate goal. It's like number 2, you can almost just make social emotional, just because I think we all recognize that it's going to be a huge, that could be a multi-year goal depending on how things go. So, but I think we're all heading down the same path, that we all agree generally these are good, and where we want to tweak here or there, I think we can all kind of get there.
I kind of don't think that we need to include number 1, because that's one of the things that the governor dictated in one of his executive orders recently, isn't it? He stated that that there was not going to be an option next year for remote learning except in specific circumstances. So I'm not sure we need to have number 1.
I think that one more means like not actually doing it because you have to do it, but successfully doing, all the pieces that would be in place to actually make that work.
Am I the only one that sees number one as the overarching and the rest as subsets of that? I mean, I really do feel like this is one big goal. And we can divide it up any way we like, but I think getting kids successfully back means implementing a plan to address the social emotional needs, providing a summer program. I mean, that's a little specific, and helping them increase their achievement. To me, these are almost all action items under the big goal. That's just the way I'm seeing it. I'm having trouble kind of envisioning this any other way.
Yeah, we could almost combine number 1 and 2 into one sentence that essentially says that we successfully transition all students and staff back, addressing learning and social emotional needs that may arise.
I agree. I think the only thing is, and I'd ask Dr. Forte, I mean, from a logistical standpoint of getting us back into 100%, I know we've been more than other districts, but I'm sure there's a lot more things that go into it. What is your feeling on is it big enough to be a separate goal, or do you think we can consolidate?
I think some of these could be consolidated. I really do think number 1 is the most important thing we're going to do. That's why I put it as number 1. I mean, get all students and staff back to 100% on learning at our peak, meaning the least amount of people out of the district. We're still at around 25% of the students not attending school in person, which translates to 400-ish students. So we need to get everyone back into school. To me, it's the number one thing we're going to do. But I do understand what you're saying about the other ones really could fall under number 1. So we could have one goal with 3 bullets underneath too.
Yeah, they almost cross into action items. In a way, you could write number 1 and then let you guys come up with the other 3, in terms of the detail and the actions.
I think I like Steve's idea of having number 1 with the individual items under 2 and 3 as bullet points, and then have number 4 as its own goal. I know we've said that it's something we always put down there, but I believe I fall on the side of it's always down there for a reason, because we need to do that.
Yeah, and number 4 is not COVID related. It's everything. Like always, every student that's not meeting benchmarks, let's work on trying to get them there. It's a goal that we'll probably have forever because it's hard to get 100% of the students to meet every benchmark. But I think that's not a bad idea. Take number 1 as a goal, number 4 as a goal, and 2 and 3 as bullet points under number 1.
Everybody good with that? Okay.
All right.
And before we leave, is there anything that any of you think should be added that's not on here, or are you, satisfied with the breadth of what we have already here before us?
I actually have 2 questions, or 1 question and 1 statement. How often do you see districts put financial goals or fiscal goals into sort of this?
If I see them, it's rarely as a district goal. It might be as a board goal, and the board tasking itself with being, financially responsible or looking for alternatives, or that being a priority, but not necessarily a district goal usually.
And 1 question I have for the board then is not related to financial or fiscal bullet points, but our high school has such great programs, and I know that we do a great job with special needs children, but I have seen less or little of goals towards cultivating the children to see if we can get an increased enrollment into like the Academy of Science and Math or the IB programs in high school. Me personally, I'd love to see if we can start increasing the number of children going to those special programs like the vocational schools that's offered by Morris County as well. And I feel like a lot of emphasis is placed on the special needs, which I believe is justified, but I do think that some of the more advanced or higher goals, if we can somehow outline that. And I don't know if this is something we address here as a goal for the district, or is it a board goal, or it's something that should be discussed in committee. But that's something I'd love to bring out there, put out there.
That was a goal of ours, like right from the beginning. And we do offer 7 high school classes in our middle school where students can take, the bio class was a big deal, where students can actually take the honors high school bio class in our school. There's about 15 kids who take it each year. You have to test into it. There's a bunch of ways to get in. Dr. Cullis handles it, but it's really been a great success from the beginning. As a matter of fact, other places have copied what we did. Then the last thing we did, and I'm open to hear other things. We kind of pushed the envelope a lot. We have, geometry and algebra 1. You can finish 2 high school math classes in the middle school. And then the other thing we did was we offer a full French and Spanish 1 and 2. So a student could technically, obviously it's the right student that could do all this, could finish levels 1 and 2 Spanish or French, meaning they could head into Spanish 3 or French 3. They could finish biology, honors biology, and go right into, they could take AP Bio, Chem honors, things like that. And then the other thing is they could start high school at the algebra 2 level. Those are pretty high level classes that we did. And we're definitely open for any other ideas that there might be, but we did push for this a few years back.
Yeah, so I think the program that we have in place is fabulous. I think that the communication really needs to start in the elementary schools. And a lot of times it doesn't start till 5th grade. I know that Callie, when she's in high school now, but when she was first eligible for those advanced sort of courses or curriculum, she started in almost 4th or 5th grade taking some more advanced math classes. For Novaline, my other daughter, who's going into 6th grade, that wasn't offered this year. It could be COVID related and stuff like that, but I think that the structure in the middle school is fabulous, but I think the structure now has to be addressed in the elementary school. The discussion should start maybe in 3rd or 4th grade levels, so that if the children has a propensity to take on more math or more English or more advanced stuff, that maybe there's some sort of path or course that you can group up these children to take more advanced math courses in the elementary school in preparation for the middle school. Because I think once they get to the middle school, it's fabulous. It's just sometimes like they don't know how to prep, or the parents don't know how to prep the children, so that, like, for example, the pre-algebra test that my daughter took in, I think, first week of June. I didn't know about that until like maybe mid-May or early May. And so that's when I started having her take some more courses on the side, or some more math prep questions on the side. So,
it's funny that you're bringing it up, because we actually had most of our comments were in the other way. Like, you're pushing them too hard. You're creating all this atmosphere of stress and pressure. It's hard to balance both of those things,
Yeah, I agree.
because you're right. You're putting 5th grade in our district, 5th grade kids are being tested and placed into a thing that's not that there's other ways to get in and out of it, but you're setting onto a pathway of a certain way down the road, right, in math and English.
And we have worked really closely with the high school on that. I mean, the biggest concern from the high school, and really all research shows, that if you do algebra 1 too early, it actually can be detrimental to move forward. And that's why we really are careful, very careful of who we put in those programs, because we don't want to set them on a path to actually regress when they get to high school and not meet what their potential would have been. We do have kids throughout the elementary school that take the math a grade level above, but it's based on the student performance and propensity. So we look at their COGET scores, and we look at their benchmark scores, and we work out plans with those students individually, right? So those students that we feel are capable or that are showing us that propensity, we move them forward. So we do have that, and it's in Lakeview and Riverview, but it will depend. Some grade levels we don't have anyone, and some grade levels we'll have 3. It really depends. We don't want to push if they have not met the benchmarks of their grade level. We don't want to skip that. And then as far as the prepping, that's kind of that whole idea of there really isn't any prepping for that, because those students haven't learned that material. But some students are just ready to move on, just logically, and the reasoning skills are there. And those are the kids that the high school says are appropriately placed to move forward. It's not, do they know, have they learned their facts and then they can take it, because that's not setting them forward for the best algebra experience. As far as the reading and the writing, you know that they can read and write at adult level in every class, starting in kindergarten. So we don't have, they are tested and they take their reading levels, and whatever reading level they can read at, that's where they read. And we definitely have kids that are adult readers in 4th and 5th grade, and they read age-appropriate material at adult reading levels. So I don't think we probably need any advanced coursework there. The only thing would be math. And again, we can just continue to look at that and see that we're capturing all of the students that we feel it's appropriate for. We definitely can take a look at that more.
Thank you.
Maybe something is, rather than like really focus on the younger grades, like you were saying, Mr. Kim, maybe we just put the information out there, because we don't want to create this extra pressure on people, but maybe some parents would choose to do that, and you know what I mean? So we're trying to balance it. When we first met and we introduced the bio class, I spoke at the meeting first, and I said, I can make just as strong of an argument not to take this class as I can to take it. So, a lot of students, they want to have their full recess, and they want to play a sport or whatever else it is. But the way we felt was that we shouldn't be making those decisions for people, that the parents should make the decisions with students on whether or not they're willing to do the extra work and give up some time to take these high level classes.
Mr. Kim, it's interesting because I think in my time on the board, we've had goals for special ed. We've had goals for accelerated. And actually a few years ago, we literally talked about, hey, what about the students in the middle that aren't on either side of that spectrum, right? Are we making sure that they're not slipping through the cracks? So it's a good point, and I'm glad you bring it up, because I think it's something in IMP that as we move forward, I think we can continue to look at that and talk to Dr. Cullish and Dr. Forte as to are there opportunities to do something different. And the only thing I would add, Dr. Forte, is, I think on our website, we have a lot of information. I think sometimes it's not marketing pleasing. It's not easy to look at. And I don't know if we can look at a way to kind of revamp it to say, hey, here's a couple different tracks. And I happen to be on not that I'm looking to send my kids to boarding school, but I know somebody who happens to be the head of a local boarding school, who is a teammate, parent of a teammate of my daughter. And I just went on their website to look, and their website is so aesthetically pleasing. And I know we don't have the same type of money they do, but it was just easy to follow what their tracks were. It was just how they represented it. So I don't know if we have an opportunity to kind of just maybe look at that. I know you have a lot on your plate. I don't want to throw something else out there, but I know we have the information there. If we could just make it a little bit easier to view, that's all.
Mr. Kim, you said at the beginning of your comment, you were concerned, let me see if I understand this correctly. You were basically concerned that the various academies and the various academies at like Morris Hills and Knowles and the other local schools and the academies at the VOTEC weren't getting enough attention drawn to them? Is that kind of what you were trying to say?
No, I think all I was saying is that I'd love to see the enrollment from Denville increase, because I think that we have such a valuable resource in our backyard, in our high schools, that if we can increase the number of enrollment from just the Denville population, it would be a huge benefit to the district, I think. So.
Okay, thank you.
So I think a lot of what I'm hearing actually rolls into a little bit of what I had emailed to the board about. And if you look at our last page that Charlene sent us for the board self-evaluation, if you just flip it to the very back page where what specific areas of board governance require additional focus and training, we talk a lot about communication between communication with the public, community outreach, public relations. I think, Mr. Kim, you were talking a little bit about communicating with the parents in the elementary schools of those opportunities and those tracks that are already in place. Like you were talking about communicating through our website and our displaying that. And maybe it's time that the board looks into enhancing that program and not tasking necessarily the current administration with that. But I think that my personal opinion is that it would require a staff member assignment to be to have that role of communicator, kind of as in the presentation that Charlene shared with us that I put out to you guys. So it's more about, I think, two-way communication with the public in that presentation. It talks about social media. It talks about utilizing that to its best level. So I wanted to hear the board's thoughts about adding some type of community relations as a goal.
What do you think about adding it as a board goal, considering the amount of work the administration has on the goals we've already kind of talked about tonight? And then it would flow down to, I mean, I guess it's just going to flow down to the administration having to do work on it, but we could at least set up some framework for them as to what we're looking for, a little bit more than just a general statement. I don't know. I'm just concerned on the amount of work we're putting on the administration.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that's why we've talked about this before as a potential board goal before. And our conversation with Charlene has always been, it's not really our role to do that communication. And I'm not suggesting that we're tasking our current administration with that. I really think that it's a potential position. And obviously we have, we've gone through the budget is set. But I think that we have to start at some point. So if we start this year looking into it, and then when we're doing the budget for the following school year, maybe it's something, if the board feels strongly enough about it, that we add that into the budget. But I think that a number of board members have identified that communication with the public is important, and it is an area that we could improve upon. So that's just, I'm not saying that I feel so strongly that it has to be a goal. I just wanted to bring it up during this part so we could discuss it.
Maybe since we're going to be creating a new 5-year strategic plan, that could be one of the groups that we create and communicate. I think communication was one of them the last time too.
It was.
So there's no reason why we couldn't have communications, and that might be communications a little bit more modern, 2023 version.
But one of the things I think, and guys, if I'm out of line here, tell me. The last time we did the strategic plan, we had communications as a goal. We kind of left it to you guys to develop that. A, I don't want to put more work on you, as these guys have said. B, I actually think it's better if the board does the planning here, does the conceptualizing, because none of us are educators. I think we come at it from the view of parents, community members. You talked about the curriculum and the tracks, right? I still don't understand them fully, right? It'd be great if maybe we sat down, a curriculum committee, and we came up with, well, what makes sense to us, right? Of course, we're going to need your guidance there, but maybe something that makes sense to us will then make sense to the rest of the public. So maybe we create a communications program based on us first.
It's funny, do you know that you said that? Because when I was thinking what Laura had said about, hey, we don't want to necessarily task the administration to do it, I was almost thinking, do we outsource this to someone who has that same outsider perspective? And I don't want to necessarily, once again, budgeting wise, we need to really evaluate how much role that is. Maybe it's a consultant to just give us some ideas on graphically how we, certain things, not the whole thing, but just some pieces here and there that they can help us with. Because I agree, I think that, we see it differently from a different view sometimes.
So does that mean that, I didn't know, how about down here on this side of me? What do you guys think?
So board, it would be
So that
board
it would
goal.
be a board goal and we would create a board committee for communications? Is that what we're suggesting? Or you want to just wait until we're saying it doesn't belong here, put it and we'll continue through our board discussion and our evaluation and look at it as a potential board goal? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm okay with that. Sounds good.
So, so recognizing that it would be a board goal, so kind of what differentiates that would be all the tasks to accomplish it would need to be the work of the board. So, similar to what you've said in the past of actually doing the communicating, I don't think is the goal, but more identifying a structure or identifying kind of what the board has in mind. I mean, and I think it also ties into, as you were talking about the board self-evaluation, that one of the areas that the board identified is having a specific communications plan and said, we feel like we do communication, we do it sometimes reactively, sometimes, it's each piece is whatever is calling for it, as opposed to it being an overall plan. So perhaps from the board's perspective, you could lay out what the steps that would be needed to develop something like that. And then, like say, you would have to budget it or identify what the alternatives could be to carry it out. Would you have a consultant? Would you create a position? Would it be a board committee? So I don't think in terms of actually doing that work right now, perhaps, but more kind of laying out the foundation of what could potentially be involved in that.
I like Dr. Forte's idea. I think this is a big overarching. I think that in 2022 coming in, we're going to be doing our strategic planning again, and then we'll have a lot of input from parents and community members that can provide some more input on what that looks like. And then I'm not trying to punt it down the road, guys, but I think that makes a lot more sense as we get the correct stakeholders in the room.
That's fair. Like I said, the only branch point I would do different this time is instead of handing it off to them to do, I think we should take that information and bring it and internalize it as a board and then come up with a plan.
I agree. I think that Dino's point about, they're the educators, they're the experts. It all makes sense to them because they're so familiar with it. We look at it from a different point of view. And I spent a number of time going through multiple districts' websites, and none of them made sense to me or I thought flowed well as an outsider. So I think sometimes you need that outsider's point of view. So now the big question is, who is going to remember this when we go to do our 5-year strategic plan? That's always the question.
Charlene's got the notes right there. There she goes.
I will remember it.
But the reason why I really like the strategic plan idea is because the community has input. It comes with a funding mechanism. We don't make goals that have no funding mechanism. Those are a waste if you do a goal without a funding mechanism. So if the public speaks, the board speaks, the district speaks, and this is something we want to do, then we put the funding.
So then it seems like we have 2 goals right now.
2 goals, with 2 subparts. So we have number 1 and number 4 as actual goals, and we agreed that 2 and 3 would be sub bullets under number 1. And we're all in agreement that that's what the priority will be for this year. Took us a while to get there, but we're there, right? Okay. Okay, you want to move on? I think the next slide talked about the board goal, right? So last year as a board, you had set a goal for yourselves. COVID kind of made it difficult, right, to participate in training together as a board. And you identified some areas that you had, thought training would be helpful in. I'm guessing that was probably based on outcomes of last year's board self-evaluation. So I don't know if you want to go through this year's first before we talk about a board goal, and then see if there's anything that comes out of the board self-evaluation that would help identify what that board goal might look like. So if let's go ahead and do that then. So the board self-evaluation, I know that we didn't get a lot of time. Hopefully, I don't know if all of you had a chance to review it. We kind of finished it this afternoon. So again, for the benefit of the public, that it used to be required that boards had to do a board self-evaluation, and about 5 or 6 years ago, the state relaxed that requirement. So now boards that continue to do it because it's a good governance practice, that if you hold the rest of the district accountable, This is your way, from the board's perspective, to hold yourselves accountable. So each board member logs on and evaluates the board over 9 different standards. So tonight then we are looking at the compiled document of those individual responses. So 6 of the 7 board members completed the board self-evaluation, and it's based on a 4.0 scale. So always look to see what the average board score is over the 9 areas. And this year, the board actually went up considerably. That this year, your average score was a 3.6 compared to last year, that was 3.3. And the year before that, it was 3.2. So also look at the range. So even, kind of functioning within a narrow range, that the lowest area the board evaluated itself was a 3.3 in planning, and the highest was a 3.8 in board performance. And I have to say, as someone that's been working with your board for, I think, 7 or 8 years now, that I was really struck by how much the board has kind of identified how much you understand your role and how much as a board you have come together working as a team and kind of separated where, all of you were like throughout all of this, it was kind of a common theme of we understand that we're a policy-making body. We understand that we don't run the district, that is the work of the administration, and that as a board, you want to continue to get better and to further elevate your governance work and keep it separate from the work of the administration and to do it in an ethical way. So to me, that really came through really loud in both your scores, in your comments. And, I think, from this board's perspective, it, has moved considerably from where you were, say, 7 or 8 years ago. The board would have been saying very different things about itself, almost kind of saying the reverse of, yes, we know we're too involved in the day-to-day operation of the district. And as a group, and, and some of it, I'm sure, has to do with the stability of the board, the stability of the administration, but you have evolved to a point now of working together as a team, each within your respective roles and understanding what those roles are to help further the work of the district. So I hope when you get a chance to read this more thoroughly that you will be very proud of the work that you've done, the things that you've written. I know that I am proud of what you've done and just think that it says a lot about the culture here. Even having, conversations like this, completing the board self-evaluation, making sure you're setting goals, doing things that would help identify high-performing boards and letting that be part of your practice every year. So just wanted to, thank you for that work. And, again, it was really rewarding to see it acknowledged throughout your work in the board self-evaluation. So just wanted to kind of take you through it a little bit. There's not, a lot of things that, like I said, that the board indicated. So the first page here talks about what you value, what's important to you as a board as we look through each one of these 9 areas. And what we look for in New Jersey school boards is to make sure that student achievement is something that the board values. And you can see that it was the area that the board evaluated itself the highest, with a 4.0 of everyone saying that that is vital to the work that you do. So again, making sure that we have that needed priority. As we look then to, turn to the next page and look at planning, like I said, this is the area that the board evaluated itself the lowest. And when I say 3.3, that's not necessarily, some boards would be happy if that was their highest, but in this case, this is your lowest. So we will, just look at it for what it is. And as we look at the comments, I think that the board, few people acknowledge that the board, recognizes the value of planning and stakeholder input and said, what, perhaps we could do a better job in, reviewing the action plans and the kind of the reporting out on the progress, and said that, perhaps that's an area from the board's perspective that if you had to identify somewhere that perhaps your focus could be more, that was an area that I think at least 2 or 3 of you mentioned that as a comment. And then, we also mentioned the strategic plan and the fact that, we recognize that that's something that, that does guide the work, and that it does help plan, this annual goals setting, and recognizing that it's expiring and looking forward to, again, involving the community and the stakeholders in this work. So I don't know if any of you have anything you'd like to add about planning. Okay. Then the next section was policy. And so here, as we look at policy, we look at it from two different ways. One of them is at the actual policy work and the development and the oversight of your policies. But then the other aspect of it is that understanding your role as a policy-making body and avoiding, the day-to-day involvement in the work of the district. So you can see, if you look at letter D down on the bottom, that all, the 6 of you that responded said that that you're commendable in avoiding that day-to-day involvement in the district. So again, just, continuing to emphasize the fact that as a board, you understand that role.
Hey, Charlene, can I ask a quick question? Sorry to
Sure.
interrupt, but the one area, I think it was across the board that each of us individually marked ourselves the lowest was, am familiar with board policies. And I think part of that is us we talked about this last year. We're really hard on ourselves. I don't know the board policy numbers. I don't know what board policy 1235 is, right? But we all know where to get the policies. We all know generally what our policies are, meaning the categories they have. And we know if we're not sure if we've got a policy on it, we know where to find it, right? So can you just tell us what we as a board member should be doing as far as familiarity with our policies?
So to me, I guess, a standard would be, not only those things you mentioned, but if a situation arises, I can't tell you how often someone will call me with something. And my first question is always, what does your policy say? And typically the person will say, oh, well, I never checked. So, when you have a situation, do you recognize then that you should be referring to your policy then to help guide what that situation should be? And then if you wanted to take it, any further than that, New Jersey School Boards has that service of, doing a policy wellness check. So we recommend you do it every 3 years. So it's probably been close to that, perhaps, if not longer. I'm not sure when the last time you've done one. But, so that would be something. Some boards will sometimes identify policies kind of just to keep the policies kind of fresh and in front of everyone, to highlight certain policies that they're going to talk about, and then just talk about it at your public, spend a few minutes at one of your meetings and, rotate different policies that you might want to talk about. Other boards will kind of the same way you have like a 5-year curriculum review cycle, we'll do like a policy review cycle, and every few years say, okay, this year we're going to look at the 1000 series and kind of just go through those policies and make sure that it still matches, a lot of times when you implemented the policies, a lot of times we need to make sure that the actual practice is matching, what the policy says. So you kind of have to look at what you're doing now in each one of those areas. And I mean, if you're not getting any mismatches, perhaps you don't need to do that. So you'd almost kind of have to see where there's any gaps or areas where you think you do need to focus more. But you kind of highlighted those things. Then, like I said, if you're using it as the basis of your decision making, that really would be, the important parts.
And I don't know if this is a suggestion for New Jersey school boards, but I think the way that's worded, we have talked about it every year, because it says, I am familiar with the board policies. Familiar is a very, very overarching term. So maybe a little more clarity on the board self-evaluation on exactly what you're asking there. We always rank ourselves really low on that. And even in the comment section, you could see where people say things about, well, I don't have familiarity of, no, I don't know all our policies. I mean, we know we have policies, we review them on a regular basis, but we couldn't recite them off the top of our head, I think is what.
Nope, that's a very fair point. Okay, then the next section is student achievement. So I think, the board has made it clear that student achievement is the focus of its work, the basis of your decisions. I think someone had mentioned that you debate it at your public meetings, you consider it when you make policy decisions, it's, considered in the work of your committees and in guidance to administration, that it truly is, the helps guide your work. And, we, tell boards that we should try and make sure that for anyone sitting in the audience at your meetings, that it should be clear that student achievement is, the focus of what you're doing. So, the next section was finance. And here, the board identified this as being a strong area. The board mentioned that the strength of the finance committee, talked about, understanding kind of that balancing role that the board has of having to, your financial responsibilities to your community versus, what you need to do to help make sure that you're giving your students the best education that your community can afford and what that looks like. And then it was also mentioned that it was felt that even people who are, members who are not on the finance committee feel like you are receiving the information that you need in order to make informed decisions. So, anyone has anything else to add? Okay, then the next section was board operations. So here, the board would be looking at your own governance structure, which is basically your committee structure. So one of the things that I always look at is number 2 on top, where it says provides a climate that allows free, open, and orderly discussion by all members through your meetings, because I feel like that's how you get your work done. As a public body, you're here deliberating, each one of you, it's important for each one of you to state your opinions, to feel respected and be able to have that dialogue. And I think, again, that came clear through the, through the comments of people saying, we have diverse backgrounds, we have diverse opinions, but everyone is heard, and that you work collaboratively. Now, someone had identified and said that it could be an area of opportunity for committee communication. So I'm not sure, what the thought is about that, or what your current process is, to know if there is a way to make it better, or.
I think we have a plan in motion right now. If I'm guessing, the comment was about committee minutes and disseminating them in a timely fashion. And right now, in the past maybe 2 meetings, the committees have been going on a formatted minutes, and they have been disseminated quicker. So I think that's in progress to be reevaluated and be redetermined.
Good. Okay.
Charlene, I have a question. There's our board acts as a board of the whole or with
Yes.
specific board committees. We got 1 in 5. I don't think that should have a split. Can we quickly go over the difference between board of the whole and with specific board committees, what that means?
Sure. I don't know that I've ever had one of these where everyone picks one thing or the other, so it's not that unusual.
I think there's a default option. I think somebody just didn't pick it, but would be my
I will say,
guess.
when I looked at this, once again, a little feedback. That question is, it's the only one that doesn't have a 1 through 5 when you go through it. So formatting wise, I was like, I actually tried to hit next, and it was like, you didn't answer everything. I had to go back to it. So
And
it's a
see
little
what
bit
it was.
confusing
Okay.
when it's listed. Maybe you need a consultant.
So it means, I guess, to answer your question, a board of a whole, in some boards, they do not have, work in the committee system, and the whole board would meet like this at a public meeting to talk about the things that you might talk about at a committee meeting versus, having standing committees. Some boards will do a hybrid where there are some things they will have committees for, standing committees for, and then some things that they will do as a board of the whole. But, most boards, especially, 7-member boards, do work within a committee system just because of the amount of work that you're able to accomplish, the amount of depth that you are able to look at issues. Okay, the next area then was the board performance, and that's the area where the board evaluated itself the highest, giving it a 3.8. And you can look at the areas that the board was in agreement, like at least 5 or 6 of you thought the board was commendable in almost all of these areas, and talked about the high ethical standards that the board has for itself, and kind of the importance and the value of that, of maintaining confidentiality, not even giving the impression that there is anything outside of the code of ethics. So again, kind of taking it very seriously, the responsibility that you have to the community as being an elected public official. So. And then the next section was board and superintendent relationships. And here again, this was a very strong area. And as we look at board and superintendent relationships, again, that understanding of roles is what helps, is one of the major contributors to that being an effective relationship, saying that we need to respect the work that our superintendent does, respect the superintendent as kind of the chief educator, our chief advisor, the level of communication that we're able to have, the level of trust, utilizing the chain of command, and then those understanding of roles. So again, you can see, all 6 of you said that the board was, commendable in utilizing the chain of command. Then the next section was board and staff. And here, kind of what helps identify that is, if we say that we do use the chain of command, so all of our board's, communication would go through our one employee, the superintendent. So then how do we have a relationship with the staff? And it would be kind of some of the, the things that were mentioned in here, of making sure that we're supporting our staff, that we're recognizing our staff, that we're providing professional development opportunities for them, that, here at your meetings, you're recognizing the great work that they do. And then also, when we're able to be visible in the schools and the district, and, being able to get to some of the events and supporting the work that's going on in the schools. So those are all ways then that you as a board can, have that relationship or support for your staff. And then the last section was board and community. And I think that we have talked about that. And like I said, the only area for the most part, the board identified it as being a strong area, with with number 7 being it has an effective community relations program. And again, as we look at some of the comments saying, that we recognize that we do a lot, would just like to see it, kind of thoughtfully consolidated into a plan. So. And then the last piece of this then was that you were asked to identify, if we considered student achievement to be our highest priority, to identify major challenges the district is currently facing. So, and a lot of it is, things that we've talked about already, looking at COVID and the impact of that, the challenge that the ever-changing or lack of state guidance, evaluating and addressing the learning needs of our students, the social and emotional needs of our students. Talked about the state aid and the impact that has in the work that you do. And also a few members talked about your enrollment and ensuring that you have the space and the facility needs to do your work. And then, kind of separate, I guess, of just looking at, the COVID again aspect of saying, making sure that we are providing our students with a well-rounded education and kind of that advanced, a little bit of what we talked about of making sure that we are, challenging. And then the last piece of this is that you were asked, again, recognizing your role as a policy-making body, if there are any areas of board governance that would be helpful to you as the board to have training. And you can kind of see that a couple people mentioned like legislative advocacy. Now, that might be a way to get involved. The Morris County School Board Association is also looking to get more active in that and looking to have representatives from school districts be part of a county group to do this. So that may be an opportunity to have someone from your board get more involved that way to help kind of, to give a voice to this, unless I don't know if there's anything you wanted to do here locally, or, if that would be a way for you to help fulfill that responsibility. And I don't know if there's anything else that you think from the, someone mentioned as a board, you kind of have, you each come and complement each other's different skills. And someone had mentioned perhaps if we each individually identified things that you would like to work on, and then, kind of thinking that individually, as you're all working together to kind of create this group, that the more you learn, then everyone else learns from that as well. So now, having said all of that, I don't know if there's anything that came out of this that, elevated itself to you as something that you would like to focus on as a board for your board goal.
I would like to suggest that since I don't think we were able, for various reasons, to do last year's board goal, I would like to suggest that everybody on the board pick one or two areas individually and get training in those areas, one class or whatever, as the school board association offers over the course of the next year.
I just want to say about our goal, we did have, as a board, we did have one training by Francis about HIB, and if I remember, it was virtual, right? It was a virtual training, but we did do it, and that was about HIB, which was, so I don't know if we want to mark that goal as, I'm not saying it's necessarily complete, I'm just saying that we did do some training together as a board.
You're right. I forgot about that. I apologize. I take it back.
I think something Mr. Kim mentioned earlier about fiscal responsibility, it's something that we've taken on this year. Actually, Mr. Kim has been really kind of leading the charge along with the finance committee on that. I think it's something tangible. I think it's something that we could set a mark on, and I think it's something that we could really strive towards as a board. And it seems like the goal that has the most meat to it that I feel like we've talked about in quite a few years, I think, is a board goal.
Agreed. Deciding on what that goal might be, though, we might be here a little bit longer.
Poor Damaris took a nice deep breath on that one.
I gave you that really small box, by the way, purposely.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that from a finance or fiscal perspective, we should try to make it as a board goal. Is that something we want to define now? Is that something we have to define now? Or if we are going to define it now, could it be something general that we can sort of mold over the course of the couple of years as we try to strive for those goals?
So what does the group think?
I think there's two pieces we could talk about, right? I think we've talked about our reserve accounts and the appropriate level of those reserve accounts and kind of planning usage of those reserve accounts. And I think we've talked about it over the years, right? So I think that may be something. The other one obviously is minimizing the tax impact below the 2% cap, if possible, right? I mean, I know there's a lot of factors between now and budget time, and you're right, Mr. Kim, like I'm a little bit worried to say, hey, we want to be at this number because we just don't know, particularly with the district goals we just talked about, how much financially, they could cost us or anything. Gosh, we didn't, when we started doing budget planning last year, we didn't know COVID was going to be a thing. And all of a sudden we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses. So, but I think those are two areas, tax impact and reserve accounts. Do we want to make it more general, or do we want to talk about those two things being kind of, hey, let's evaluate our reserve accounts and determine appropriate levels and usage, as well as minimize the tax impact for the next year, next budget year. I'm not sure if that's too general or what the board feels.
So then what I'd like to propose for this year is that we use this year as a way to sort of create benchmarks. So instead of having a specific number in mind, we utilize as a goal for this year is to evaluate how to, as you were saying, Mike, or Mr. Anderson, to better understand the potential of over budgeting, and as a result, increasing our reserve accounts, and put parameters or develop parameters to for future metrics or something like that.
Did you get that, Charlene?
Kind of.
This is where we always rely on Charlene to like take all of what we say and form it into an actual goal instead of just random words.
Yeah, we got the new strategic plan coming up in the near future here. Two things I put in the comments, identifying the challenge facing your district, and it's hard to really get a real good firm grip on this type of thing, but it's going to happen, and maybe a lot of us won't be here when it does happen, but you got resolution, long-term planning of building expansion, continuing to lease or build a new school due to increased student counts. And before that, I had student enrollment increases from the developer's remedy, affordable housing, and subsequent cluster housing. Those are big ticket items that, and again, it's a crystal ball right now. That's a little foggy, but it's coming. So that's more of a strategic plan thing. But we talk about doing things financially. The budget, we did a tremendous job this year under the 2% cap, and then I'm mentioning it, make sure it gets embedded in the public's mind that we've done millions and millions of dollars of building and grounds projects here without a resolution. Okay, and resolution was a lot of talk when I first joined the board, and nobody had problem with putting that financial burden on the district, but we found a way to do it without increasing taxes through a resolution. So obviously, if you have to build a new school or do a major expansion, it would be difficult to not do a resolution, but that ties into the financial, so we really got to be careful what we do on the short term, because long term there will be some type of impact. And we're leasing a building right now, which is great, but it's costing money every year, and we invested a lot of money in it to get up and running.
We also have a demographic study that we're going to be starting in a couple months as well. So I think Mr. Cass makes a great point. I think the more general the goal is for this year, so that we can begin to lay the groundwork, I think would be in our benefit.
Did you need language again from board members, or?
I have part of it. It said something about evaluating a better understanding and developing priorities. So I don't know, a better understanding of,
Well,
I
think that was Mike, right? The better understanding of our reserve account, you specifically. I mean, and I like that very much, because I think we've done a tremendous job, and Mr. Key here, I think. Our finance committee gives us so much more information than we had even a few years ago. And it helps the rest of the, and I wrote that comment in there saying that the rest of the board, I think, has a much deeper understanding of what happens in finance because of what happens in the finance committee and how good they are at disseminating the information. So I think we're in a much better place on that side. But I still feel like the reserve accounts are a big black box for me. We never really understand a district our size with the buildings we have. What should our reserves be? Nobody really can give us that answer. Nobody answers that question. I really would like to try to find that answer. If we could do a deep dive into that alone, it would be very helpful. The other piece is absolutely, I'd be interested in continuing the work of looking how can we reduce the tax burden? How can we, what can we do there? How can we keep that at the forefront? So to me, those two are really useful.
And I think it would be important after those two sentences, we say, and still achieve the goals of the district, or emphasize that our goal is not to, I don't know how to say this without.
No, I know what you
The
mean.
goal of the district is not to decrease the tax burden. The goal of the district is student achievement. So in doing that, we want to decrease the tax burden as much as possible and still achieve the goals of the district.
And
Thank you. You
also
said that much better than
consider
I did.
the long-term, your long-term considerations as well that were brought up. So. Got that. I do. Well, I think we have successfully accomplished identifying board goal, identifying district goals, and, discussed your board self-evaluation. So I don't know if there's anything more that the board had for me. Otherwise, I now have my homework here, right? Uh-huh.
And then you'll get it to us cleaned up and we'll have it on the next agenda for approval.
Sounds like a plan.
Charlene, thank you so much, as always, for coming and spending a few hours with us. We always appreciate your time and feedback.
It is my pleasure.
Thank
Good night,
Good seeing
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Charlene.
Don't worry.
You know how to turn it off.
Good night, everyone.
Charlene, thank you.
So we are going back to our agenda. We just finished special presentations, goals, recaps. We are going to skip over the board response to public comments for now. And the 2020-21 HIB presentation is July 9th. And now we are at superintendent comments. Dr. Forte.
I don't know why I said July 9th. It's July 12th is our meeting. Yeah, we'll get that fixed. I think that was the meeting last year, believe it or not. Okay. Superintendent's comments. Show you this. So that one will be hung in our office, and we have another one for Valley View.
It's beautiful.
July 12th Board of Ed meeting. I just had that as notes. Do we have enough people that are going to be able to make that one?
So I will not be present for that meeting. Mr. Capello has kindly agreed that he will be here and will run the meeting.
The next thing I had was, are we ready to move towards, since the expiration of the executive order and the state of emergency, are we ready to switch to fully in-person board meetings? In that case, we would switch from Google Meets for the public to YouTube Live with an email address for public comment.
So just to be clear, Dr. Forte, for the public, they would still be able to view it live. Board members would be here in person unless they weren't able to attend and they still had the ability to call in. The administration would be present. And if a member from the public wants to make a comment, they'll send their comment in via email. There will no longer be a chat feature. They'll send their comment in via email. It would be read during the live meeting.
Yes, we'll set up an email address, something that makes sense. And it'll go to, maybe I'll have it go to the three of us, maybe the board president, so that everybody can have a shot at getting it.
Sounds good to me.
All right. July committee meetings.
Sorry, Steve, hold on a second. Just to be clear, the people will still be able to come to the board meetings and comment in person. All of the comments don't have to be submitted via email.
No, it would be a regular live meeting just like this. we just wouldn't be using Google Meet anymore. We would be using YouTube Live, which would just be a streaming feature. It's not, it wouldn't have, this is kind of like a conference call feature. It wouldn't be that. And committee meetings for July, they're always a challenge because of vacations. We're going to try to set up one committee for the day of the board meeting. I know Dr. Cullis is away. I know I'm away. I'm not sure about Damaris.
I'm here.
Okay, so we're looking at, I know that wouldn't work for your committee. So,
I can do July 8th, which I think is the Thursday.
okay,
the meeting.
that would be a vacation day for me, but I can log on to that. It's not a big deal. Are we good for doing those? Are we good for all those?
I'm not available on the 8th, but you guys can go without me.
I'll be available on the 8th as far as I know.
Actually, maybe not. I think I'm leaving my vacation early. So let me get back to you on that.
Do you want to do the finance and ops on the same night on the 8th? Are we good with that too? Do them both on the 8th like we usually do?
Yeah, that's fine. Same time.
Okay.
then.
I'm okay with
would this
just
be
about
virtual,
anything
or-
as long as it happens before the actual meeting.
Yeah, it's going to have to be virtual because we're going to be in different locations. So Dr. Cullis will please set up a meeting for the 8th with the group, and Ms. Gorowski, the same thing for the 8th. We'll do 6 o'clock for finance. I mean, for IMP, and 6:30 for finance.
And Dr. Forte, you want to just tell the technology committee that you'll be contacting them?
I did send an email to them today about the day of the board meeting, 6 p.m., if they could all do that. In your folder, there's also a link to some data on my merit goals. So there's an update on my merit goals today.
Sorry, Steve, where did you say that was?
And in the agenda packet, you'll see one that says Forte Merit. You click on that and it'll take you to a folder. So one of my merit goals was to help people in the town get help with getting services for people. With COVID, there were, a lot of people in need, and I made a spreadsheet with all the different things that we did. I think I might have forgotten some, but we really did a lot of things, and with the help of some of the people in the room as well, and some volunteers. We were able to set up 2 on-site in the town, one on the south side of town, one on the north side of town, where the Morris County mobile unit came to the town to help some families in need, and our counselors manned that as well. It was a pretty good thing. We also were involved with the YMCA. We set up things for social services. So you can see there's a list of about 30 things that we did throughout the year. That was one of my merit goals. My other merit goal was to bring in some revenue. And in the second tab of that spreadsheet, it shows the total after all the different things that were through donations and money coming into the district. And then the second part of that revenue goal was to bring in to apply for some grants. I did apply for 3 grants. We did get denied in all 3. The New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance I did with the town, which was we thought we had a decent shot at it, but we didn't get the grant. So there's more information. If you click on the final tab, there's resources. So this is something that we've been using all along. One of the things that we found challenging was to get some of our residents tested for COVID in the middle of the COVID crisis. It was, believe it or not, very difficult to do. And if you look at the resources tab, these are the things that we did find, and we did provide this information to the public through our counselors that were working one-on-one. Some of the other things we did was like the turkeys for Thanksgiving, and we did a coat drive, canned food drive. We did actually Dr. Cullis even ran a food drive for this pantry too. That there was a lot of stuff. I saw it. So there's been a lot of different things we did for the public to try to help during this hard time. And I think the best part of it was, rather than just doing the one-off things, we were successful in getting, sustainable help to people. I think that was my biggest thing, was I wanted to make sure that not only are we doing something right now, like somebody called and says they don't have food to feed their family, but what are you going to do the next day? So that was the second part of the goal, was really to come up with a way for some of our families that were having a hard time finding these services to actually get some type of sustainable help through our local social services and the county, as well as all these other things on that resources tab, just to try to help get them through this tough time. And this kind of thing is going to continue. It's not like this is a one-off thing. We're going to do this anytime we can help somebody. And I know the greatest thing is dealing with all of you up there. Everybody offered their help. I know right in our own neighborhood, we were helping a family whose one of the parents passed away, and they needed some help, and we got them the help. And right up here with this group that you're looking at, all of us chipped in and tried to help and get people the help they needed for the holidays and just in general. And it felt good to do all of it. It was a great feeling. I made a lot of good connections with the public, and it was definitely a rewarding goal. So I just wanted to explain it all to you. So those were my two miracles. Obviously, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please feel free to email me or give me a call or a text. And I'd be happy to explain more of it if there's something I might have left out. Next one. So the Esser Plan, that's the thing that we've been talking about. This plan, it's ARP funds that's coming from the federal government. I really like to find out more information. Maybe somebody up here who really likes to get involved with the politics. Why are we getting $340,000, which sounds like a lot, but there's districts that are much richer than us? Like, I don't want to name all of them right now, but there are districts way richer than us with less than half the students that are getting double the amount we're getting. And we tried to ask, Damaris asked, we had a call, and the answer was, it comes from your census. So if it comes from the census, why would our census be higher than the districts? I've shared some of this with you guys. I would really love to hear it from somebody, maybe one of our representatives. Why are, and I'm not saying that the 340 isn't a nice thing. It is, right? But I started looking at some of what the other districts were getting and looking at how much more they're getting with so many less students and so much more affluence than we have. And I'd like to just find out why. Also, if you recall, part of this Esser money is actually discretionary. And there was a bill, it didn't go anywhere, but it was a bill saying that the districts that were able to open on like the first day of school and had every kid back like we did, there's a handful. Why are we not getting a little bit more of a share of those funds to make up for the cost that we incurred, rather than the ones that were virtual for almost the entire year? I mean, if we went virtual for the whole year, we would save a lot of money, and we didn't. Obviously, that wasn't even a consideration. And I want everybody to know that there was nobody up here on the board or anything that said anything about saving money. It was get the kids back in school from the start. But if somebody could get somebody, it sounds weird, but if somebody could get somebody to explain it, that why we're getting what we're getting, and some districts that are more affluent are getting what they're getting, I'd love to hear it. And I know some of you, I'm looking over at the one guy especially, loves to do this stuff. So it would be great. Valley View graduation, it was great to see everybody. It was a really nice setting. Everybody really liked it outside. It was beautiful out. It was a day that, like, the beginning of it was kind of cloudy, so it wasn't super hot. It got a little bit hotter as we went along. The ceremony is typically pretty short. It only lasts about 40 minutes. I thought the setting was great, and it was just so nice to see everybody, in person rather than on a Zoom call. I just want to give a little recap of our year as well, just because really there was a lot of comments from the public, and I just want everybody to know where we're at with this. From the beginning, we decided that it was very important to have every kid in school every day. That was the goal right off the bat. And it was a challenge. The people I consulted with really didn't think that was a great idea. But we really felt that it was important to get every kid back in school, every kid that wanted to come to school to be able to come to school. At the same time, this was really Dr. Cullis's baby here, was we need to create a virtual K-5 school so we're not live streaming the younger grades. We had to live stream the upper grades because we wouldn't be able to get enough teachers with the right certifications, like to teach geometry and French and all the different subjects. But Dr. Cullis was strong behind this, that we needed a K-5 virtual school. That way, the kindergarten teachers, the first grade teachers, second grade teachers, they're only teaching the kids in the classroom, and the virtual teachers are teaching those kids alone. It's not a disruption for either of them. So that was really important. So that's another thing. And the third really big thing was, and this was something that we all felt, we had to make sure that there was equitable access to learning, no matter what the financial circumstances of the family are. So we did go out and purchase several Wi-Fi hotspots and Chromebooks that had Wi-Fi in them to give to parents so that their students would not have a disadvantage. And all along, throughout this whole year, we were able to do it, and not one time did a student go to the school nurse because of a mask issue. In our district has spent considerable funds and time getting our buildings up to where they are right now. And one of the areas we spent a lot of time on was our HVAC. That's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So we had a lot of the things in place that some of the other districts didn't have. We had some of the personnel in place that some of the districts didn't have. And we also had our technology was up to par to be able to handle this. These were all things that were done over the years. I think I'm very proud to say this, but at this particular time, we only have 12 classrooms district-wide that don't have air conditioning. All the rooms without air conditioning will be completed by September 1st. That doesn't mean all large spaces, hallways, but every classroom by September 1st will have air conditioning. And all classrooms for the summer program this year have air conditioning. I also want to note that our area was in the green or low range of COVID activity and now is back in the yellow. One of the things that's very important is that when students are on the buses, there's no way to keep them 20 feet apart. I'm sorry, 6 feet apart. So we have students on the bus. We had a positive case just recently, and it just so happened to fall on the time that would have impeded that student's ability to go to graduation. If it was one day off on the other end, that student would not have been able to attend. But because we're in the green, it was a 7-day quarantine rather than the 14-day. But you could see that if the things aligned and we were in the yellow, say, and you had to do a 14-day quarantine, and students on the buses don't have masks, well, we'd have to quarantine the entire bus, and students would have to miss out on things like the graduation. Another thing I want to make sure everybody understands is that we always consult with local superintendents, experts. We gather as much information as we can, even on silly things like closing school for snow. I actually spend hours doing this, believe it or not, to decide whether or not we're going to close for snow. So when it comes to a thing like reopening our school, we spend a lot of time consulting with our other superintendents and other experts in the area, health department, school doctor, another expert that we have locally, St. Clair's. And when we do that, we make the decision based on what we think we can do. And that works both ways. Like when we opened for every kid every day in September, people were saying that's not going to work. You know, you have to do the cohort model. It's the only real way that you're going to have a chance of having a regular school year. And, you know, I'm happy that it worked out. I was worried about it, that we were doing it. And I felt like there was a chance that we would have to switch to the cohort model. As a matter of fact, one of our meetings, we started talking about, we might have to do that just because we weren't able to quarantine and do all the things we needed to do. So I'm happy with the way it turned out. And I'm happy that we were able to consult with experts and we made the decisions based on what we could do. I think that was the biggest thing when we were going through all this, is decide what can Denville do. I can't be concerned with what they can do in another town because they don't have exactly the same setup we do. They don't have the same buildings. They don't have the same staff. So it was really important that we consult with them and then take their information and come up with a plan for us. And that's where we got to our point. And I really just wanted to stress those few things tonight. And I am very proud of our students, our staff, everybody, the board, everybody chipped in, did what they needed to do, and got our students back every day if they wanted to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Dr. Cullis, Assistant Superintendent comments.
We already have mentioned the Denville Academy and the ESY. So those did start today. So today was the first day, great start, but we did already talk about that. I also have my merit goals that were already from the last meeting, but you can look in the folder. There's extensive evidence in there. So I'm just going to do a quick summary and you can look at the evidence with backing it up. So goal one, so besides the pandemic, you know, we also were dealing with events that were happening in society, and equity became a huge issue. It was spotlighted in every aspect of our lives. So it became a real issue for us as a district. And we knew that we needed to also look at the materials and resources that we have for our students to make sure they are providing mirrors and windows of different cultures, and that everyone has an opportunity to see themselves in our materials, but also learn about other races, ethnicities, and cultures as well. So one of our goals was to increase our classroom libraries by 20% to make sure that we were addressing those issues. And so the summary is that Lakeview has, this is an approximate because again, a lot of the books were virtual. So it was like back and forth, like trying to count them. But we had over 7,500 books in the Lakeview classrooms. This does not count the libraries. There is over 11,000 in the library. Riverview has 6,000 and Valley View has 367 different titles. Remember when they do novels, you know, there's 200 of that novel, but they have 367 different novels there. So we needed 2,775 books to purchase for our classrooms. And we spent $36,000 and spent, because that's the amount that we budgeted. And Amy Rossi did an incredible job. She spent 3 months vetting every book to make sure she looked at common sense resources, conservative resources, liberal resources, everyone, to see that these books were appropriate for our classrooms. We read many of them. I myself read the middle school books, and we were able to purchase with that money 3,958. So we went over our goal by 1,200. Just really looking at resources and really getting not only new books published by own voice authors, but ones with different characters. So I was very, very happy with that. The third goal was the math proficiency, which I already alluded to, and I told you that 87% of our students in the middle school did grow from our first benchmark to our last. Some had incredible growth. I think our highest growth was, or is their highest? Our highest growth, a student actually had 69% growth, which is incredible the year. The average, though, for each grade level did differ between 7% and then different resources or different grade levels and different courses up to 32% average growth. So I have all the stats there, even a comparison on there when you look at it. It's color coded for each report's color coded for who was virtual, who was not. Every course level that they were in, each teacher and so forth. So you can see all the evidence in there. What I can tell you is that we did not see any significant difference between virtual and in-person. The same number of students that struggled in person struggled virtually. So there wasn't really any correlation between if you were virtual, you did much better, and if you were in person, you did much better. I think the one area that I really want to make sure we address next year is that there were more students in the core level of our subjects that were virtual than in our advanced programming. So we really do need to make sure that and those students did not see as much growth as our students in our advanced programs. Our advanced programs saw a lot of growth. They started high, but they also ended very high with that. So that's something for the fall. But we did meet that goal. And so again, take a look at all that data. It is in that folder. And then finally, goal 4 was to create a data analysis team to work through all this data, because we now have an incredible wealth of data on everyone's English scores, whether it's just comprehension, their reading levels, their math, their fact fluency. We have a lot of data. It's a matter of taking that data and figuring out what we need to do. Do we need to change our programs? Who needs assistance? Who needs to be pushed? And so we created a data analysis team, and the list is there of who was approved on the data analysis team. We were trained multiple times with Linkit throughout the year. And then we did the one question that we added, and I remember Dawn, we worked together on this, adding that piece of accountability, that we have a tiered system of supports team in each building that takes the data, and then when teachers recommend them for students for support, is able to analyze the data, helps explain it to parents and explain it to the teachers of how they should use that data to help the student. So, and then the times that those teams met is listed on that summary sheet as well. The only one is not done yet is the audit. Again, we have so many books that were out. I mean, literally thousands of books that were in homes, that they are all over the district at this point. And so we're going to have to continue to audit the actual title and labeling of each book into August and September. Last thing I have is just a congratulations, a Riverview teacher, and she's also our technology coach, Renee Sudol. She was just published June 25th. Her article on social emotional learning in a remote environment was published by Teaching for Tomorrow. It's a tech blog for teachers, and she was just picked up. So it's a great article. It's a long article. And I know that Dr. Forte tweeted that out as well, and I'll put it on the website. So congratulations to Mrs. Sudol. This concludes the Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cullis. A lot of information in your folder for us to review. And I think I speak for the entire board when I say thank you so much for your efforts, because it's clear that just by the amount of data that there is, that you worked really hard. So you and your team. So thank you very much. Mrs. Grasky, Business Administrator comments.
I have 2 items to discuss tonight. As in previous years, there's 2 resolutions for tonight for your approval. The deposit of funds into the Capital and Maintenance Reserve. This resolution must be made between June 1st and June 30th per statute. And the amount listed as in the resolution is not to exceed. That doesn't mean, for the public information, that we will be depositing those amounts into the reserves funds. It could be anywhere from $1 to the amount listed in the resolution. The other item is my merit goals is for your review and approval for the July 12th board meeting. This is a qualitative merit goal, and it is to apply for a second FEMA grant application related to COVID-19 expenditures. Within the last 2 weeks, the New Jersey Public Assistance approved the grant in the amount of $79,000. That concludes my report.
Congratulations. Okay. It is now time for the board's response to public comments from June 14th board meeting. As we had stated here at our last meeting, as well as in a letter to the community, we would take all public comments and then respond to them collectively here at tonight's meeting. Yeah, so if I share my screen, does that work? Yes. Okay. I'll be allowed to do that in a minute. Okay. Okay, so here we are. You can follow along behind me if you're here, and you can follow along at home on our screen. So in total, we received 31 comments from the public during our meeting. A few people spoke multiple times, so that's 31 people coming up to speak. Their names have been removed. Comments were also offered to be emailed, and they were added to the list. Some are comments that the public asked to be read. Here are the list of public comments, the 31 comments. I guess I can go through and read these so that the public can feel satisfied that they'll be answered. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know why. Can you go to the next one? There we go. Okay. So number one, and this is me paraphrasing. These are not direct quotes. This is me paraphrasing and simplifying the language so that we can get through the public meeting. Will masks be required on buses? Buses are hot. Question two, and some of them are comments. We are accepting a bribe, we being the board. Vaccine clinics on campus, will there be vaccine clinics on campus? Abusing children, that we're abusing children by the policies that we're setting forth. But we have a lack of due diligence. Who is investigating if the vaccine is safe? Taxpayers' money is being used for awards for staff and students. Again, these are all public comments. We are not saying that all of these things are factual. Number three, look at the science and where are we now? COVID is under control in Denville. Consider social emotional impact and the quality of education. Number four, was a student discussing being bullied for not wearing a mask. Number five, allow parents a choice to mask their children. The loopholes, we were asked about the loopholes that other districts found. And have you reached out to other districts? There we go. Number six, mask breaks are not being given to students. Choice for parents to mask or not to mask their child. It is their right. And they mentioned Mansfield Township. Number seven, was a student, does not like wearing a mask. The student stated, when you smile with a mask, no one sees you smile. Number 8, masks are affecting students' mental well-being. Linguistic skills are suffering. Children's basic rights have been violated. School board's job is to oversee districts are well run, not to run the districts, and not for personal agendas. And number 9, it all comes down to money. And look at Brick Township and Butler Township. Number 10, protect the health of the students, of the most vulnerable students and the most vulnerable community members. Number 11, humidity determines the transmission rate of disease. Number 12, the student does not agree with the mask requirements. The student who spoke did not agree with the mask requirements. Number 13 was a thank you. Number 14, mask is not one size all for kids, extended school year, and kids are afraid to ask for a mask break. Number 15, expressed appreciation to the administration and board, stated there's 2 ways to slow transmission, vaccines and masks. Number 16, stated, did you know statistically children have X% survival rate? Children are afraid to ask for mask breaks. Masking should be a choice. Students are being used as pawns and make masks optional. And then the next slide. Thank you. A student spoke against masks. Number 18, thanked the district for unprecedented educational opportunities not found in other districts. Number 19, there's not enough science. There was a time when schools were interested in protecting students from bullying. Number 20, no science to back up masking. Not about the health, about vaccines. We are pawns. I think it was a reflection of the community as a whole. We are pawns in a political game, and our children are suffering for it. Number 21, Denville has done a good job by giving masks. Give masks another look, and their executive orders are ambiguous. Number 22, congratulations to the nurses, and bullying works both ways. Number 23, what is the science? Will you be making studies available? How can other school districts make masks optional? And a request to survey the parents. Number 24 was a correction of their previous statement. Number 25, un-American to not include parents' choice, be a little more American. Number 26, Laura Wagner said, we will not survey parents. Parents are in charge. That's what the person stated. Parents are in charge of their children, not teachers. Executive order is not a law. Number 27, once the plan is submitted, the district gets the money, you must follow the plan. There are millions of dollars in surplus, don't submit the plan. Then there was a question about woodworking stations, which was answered by Damaris and Dr. Cullis during the meeting. Number 28, base your vote on science, law, belief in freedom, the fear factor. Make your decision not on fear or bogus science. Number 29 was a question about the calendar. Number 30, the board is supposed to represent our views. We can recall you. And number 31, show us the science you're looking at. So these were the comments that were presented during the public meeting. I'm going to go through, and I think you'll see that all of them are answered. They kind of hit some general comments or general sections. There were public comments that were emailed. Do you mind just going to the next? Yeah. 6 emails of support for the district's decisions and plans during this school year. Several emails repeated questions that were asked during public comment section. 1 letter of the public asked for his letter to be read at this meeting. And then 1 email had these questions. Why are we not prioritizing the health and well-being of students, allowing for meaningful family engagement? Active and authentic parent engagement is the decision-making process, builds trust and credibility for the final plan. Involving parents and students in school district level planning teams. And these are all things that were found in the road back plan. So that member of the public was asking us why we are not doing those things. So here is the board's response. I think the administration has done an excellent job at explaining how they've come to their decisions. And the board was asked about our votes and what we're basing our votes on. And here are some answers. The science. The district administrators are experts in education. They are not experts in public health. That's not what they were hired for. That's not their job. The 7 of us that sit here, we are not experts in public health. We are not here to debate data, to provide scientific evidence and decide whether it has credibility or not, because we don't feel that we are qualified to do so. So we look to the experts who are qualified to do that. And the experts in public health, as Dr. Forte has mentioned many times, the experts that we refer to are the New Jersey Department of Health, the Morris County Department of Health, the Denville Department of Health, St. Clair's Health System, the Denville Board of Education physician, and the administration has those links on our websites. So if you're looking for the data that is followed, you can follow those links. If you have questions about that data, I suggest that you seek answers from the people who provided that data. There was questions about HVAC and the air quality. Again, not anyone's area of expertise here. So industry experts were looked to for that advice, and the administration has previously provided the answers that New Wave Environmental and Rainier Group were the 2 companies who were sought for HVAC maintenance, as well as they came in and evaluated the district buildings prior to the reopening of the district in September. I kind of said this already, but scientific data will not be debated here. We, the board, acknowledge we are not experts in this field and therefore seek the recommendation of experts. A lot of other questions discuss the social, emotional health, and bullying. Again, the district, the board rather, we are not experts in this field. And the administration, while they have some experience in it, their expertise is in education. So they look to guidance from mental health professionals, and those are the school counselors, the school psychologists, and the licensed clinical social workers from St. Clair's Hospital that the district has partnered with. Again, this isn't providing any new information. This is all summarizing information that the administration has previously provided. But when you ask the board how we come to make our decisions, this is the information that we utilize, the information that the administration already provided. Of course, we are aware that there is a significant impact to students caused by this worldwide pandemic, including masking, right? No one here believes that masking does not affect the students. What the board and administration believe is that we have to follow the public health guidelines until the pandemic gets to a point where we can safely unmask. And then I wanted to address bullying. I addressed it a little bit in the letter that I sent to the community maybe last week. And there were some mentions of students being bullied here at our meeting. There was a comment made that districts used to take that seriously. I don't think there's one person who sits on this board who does not take that extremely seriously. What we would say is that if you feel like your child has been bullied, we do not want to see that happen. Please speak to the teacher, the building administrator, a counselor within the building, or the central administration as soon as possible. Speak to them so that action can be taken, so that that stops, and so that the situation is rectified. The district still, the board still reviews all HIB cases. HIB being, help me, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Thank you. So we are still, although there have been a lower number reported this year, it is still the duty of the administration to investigate them and the duty of the board to review those investigations and reports. So it is not something that we ignore. It is something that we take very seriously. And of course, There will always be bullying of some nature, likely, but we hope to nip it in the bud as quickly as possible. And the way that starts with you guys, that starts with the reporting. So coming to a board meeting and discussing it is certainly within your rights, but the way to get things done and the mechanisms that the district has already put in place is to report them. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about the law and other districts. So again, district administration and the board, we are not experts in the field of law. So we look to the experts. Our experts are our district attorneys, and they have advised us that executive orders are laws and must be followed. Executive order number 175 states that all students must wear face masks unless, and there's about 11 exceptions, and you can Google that and find them all. But one of them specifically states extreme heat among other conditions listed. There were a number of, and I'm going to change my screen here for a second. There were a number of districts that were mentioned, Butler being one of them. Oh, I guess you guys can't see here. Butler being one of them, Mansfield, Brick, and then I looked locally at Morris Hills Regional, which is the high school district that we feed into, as well as Randolph. All of these, and I'm not going to bore you with clicking through all of their reopening plans, but every single district's reopening plan, if you go to them, their language, as is the intent of the state's requirement for us to provide unified reporting, that you can see masking is one of the first mentions, and each one reads something along the lines of, we will follow the guidelines set forth by executive orders, by the Department of Health, by the Department of Education. The way that some districts dropped, and I'm going to just highlight Butler's masking update as they were brought up. And this is a letter specifically addressing that. This is dated June 11th. It's from the Butler Township's website. And it's dated June 11th. It's from Dr. Johnson, who is not the is the superintendent. And it says, dear parents or guardian, earlier this week, the Butler School District sharing that we would move students and staff having the option of removing their face masks due to the higher temperatures we were experiencing. Additionally, I shared that we would monitor temperatures moving into the final week of school in order to make a determination regarding masking during the last 5 days of school. And looking to the weather for next week, temperatures are forecasted near or above 80 degrees on each day, which will make the temperatures in the classrooms of that level higher or significantly higher. With that in mind, the Butler School District will continue making masking optional for the week of June 14th through June 18th. This is not the case in the Denville School District. As Dr. Forte has said, we have, I believe he said 12 right now, 12 classrooms.
There's 20 district-wide.
Thank you. There's 20 classrooms district-wide in 4 buildings, 20 classrooms that did not have air conditioning. So temperature was not something that we could utilize to drop the mask condition because it didn't apply. There were no significant extreme temperatures in the classroom setting that our children were sitting in. For those 20 or so classrooms that were not air conditioned, that is when the message went out to parents that teachers who were in those classrooms at that time would make the determination if a mask break was necessary. So that was the parent or the discussion rather surrounding teachers making the decisions for mask wearing at appropriate times. It was about heat. And the parents couldn't do that because they're not in the classroom. And as Dr. Forte said, in September, it is the intent of the district that every classroom will have air conditioning. So again, that will not be a concern. Yeah, so there, we can't make the blanket statement that masks will be optional based on extreme heat. It just doesn't, it doesn't apply to our district. Like Dr. Forte said, there's many things that vary between districts, and That is something that Denville has prioritized and has been able, with our improvements, to take care of and air condition the buildings. If we could go to the next slide. Some people's comments talked about a board member's oath and what it is our job to do. Here is our oath that we take when we become board members. We solemnly swear or affirm that we will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same of the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, so help me God. We also solemnly swear or affirm that we possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of the member of a Board of Education. We're not disqualified as a voter pursuant to that law, nor disqualified due to convictions of crime offenses listed in that law. And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office according to the best of my ability. So help me God. We are not looking for loopholes. Our oath that we took was to uphold the law. Okay. We're sworn to support the laws of the United States as well as New Jersey. If we feel that there's a law that's unjust towards our students, we have and we will continue to speak out against this law and advocate for the students in our district. We did that recently when there was a law passed by the New Jersey legislature about marijuana and not reporting that to parents. Thank you. And not having the parent awareness. Dr. Forte spoke out about it, board members spoke out about it, and already at our meeting, we were aware that there was legislation in the works to reverse that law. So we did not need to take action on it, and it was by our next meeting reversed. But we take our oath very seriously, and we do not have, we're not looking for loopholes. If we feel like a law is unjust to our students, we'll advocate for the students on their behalf. Thank you. We understand. We are 7 board members. We're parents, we're grandparents, we're your community members, we're volunteers, we're taxpayers, there's coaches up here. We're part of you guys. That's our job, is to see things from your perspective. So we understand that there are concerns, there are questions, there are fears. Is the district doing the right thing? The 7 of us look at those things all the time. And something I wanted to point out is that between the 7 of us, and we don't talk about politics here in this room typically, because I think that we all, after sitting here together collectively for a few years, have realized that doing what's best for the students of Denville has nothing to do with any political agenda. So it's easy to come to this table holding very opposite political views and coming to the same conclusion. The 7 of us represent a large range of political and personal opinions. You listened to us tonight. Many of you were here listening to us, whether online or here in person. We disagree a lot. What we do is respect each other. We listen to one another. We hear each other out, and we don't always agree. But collectively, we decide. We talked a lot with Charlene from New Jersey School Boards about, we did our board self-evaluation, and we talked a lot about how we work together as a board. And I think it's easy, no, that's it. I think it's easy to do that when we respect one another and we hear all the concerns of the board members, whether we agree with them or not. Something that I can tell you, Charlene said it, she's worked with us for quite some time. She's a neutral third party. We do not have personal agendas here. There were some accusations made that some of the 7 of us have personal agendas, and I can tell you that there is nothing farther from the truth. We just want collectively what is best for the district, for the community, for the students, for the taxpayers. So I hope that you feel like that's the end of my presentation. I hope that you feel like your questions were answered. There is one letter that I mentioned that a member from the public asked to be read. So it is, I don't know what time it is.
9:45.
Thank you. It is 9:45. And
Just that, so the email you forwarded with this statement didn't have the statement attached. So
okay.
sorry about that.
So I'm going to just give you my computer. So it's 9:45.
But before you open to the public,
Yep.
I would like to, I might have some answers to people's questions right off the bat with this document I have here.
Yeah. Actually, that's great. Do you want to? So we just stated the time for no reason.
I left this up here. So just to make sure everybody understands, our reopening plan for June that's going to be approved tonight by the board, there were two changes. Rather than printing out the whole thing, everything else is exactly the same that you saw online. There are two changes to the plan. The first one addresses masks. The language will be changed to say the following with the board approval. Barring a significant change in health metrics from the current state and without contravening guidance from the New Jersey Departments of Health Education and/or Health, our local health department and medical experts, the Denville School District will consider making masks optional in school buildings for the 21-22 school year. The other part that was changed, I inserted a link to the COVID activity report, and that it's important because that's the one that tells how much COVID is going on in the area, and that deals with how what happens when there is a positive case and what we have to do, how long the quarantining is, things like that. Masks on buses at the current time, masks will be required on buses, and masks outdoors at the current time, masks will not be required outdoors. Obviously, all of this is worded, on June 28th for what's going to happen on September 1st. There could be changes. We could have another outbreak, or maybe it goes the other way and there's less COVID. Hopefully that's what happens. The last one that changed, there were some people that were concerned with this, and it really wasn't something that anyone up here was sold on. And it's very easy to get the vaccine if you want. So we removed the language around having any type of vaccination clinic on the campus. So that is no longer being considered. These are the only two changes to that document. Everything else is exactly the same, except for the fact that I took off the word draft because it'll be approved tonight and it'll be submitted. So everybody has that. It will be updated once the board approves it and disseminated to the public, and it'll be posted on our website.
Thank you, Dr. Forte. Okay, so it is 9:48. We are going to open for the first public comment section, and I am going to read the regulations here. Let me just say that there was lively discussion last time, but there was also disorderly conduct. You will be warned, but disorderly conduct will not be tolerated here. You have 3 minutes. We ask you to adhere to the time limit and speak respectfully. If you can't do so, please do not come up and speak during our meeting. The purpose of bylaw 0167, public participation in board meetings, is to recognize the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of such comments, the participants must preface comments by an announcement of his or her name and place of residence. Statements made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements, questions, or inquiries shall be directed to the board president, which, by the way, is a board policy. So if some members of the public are wondering why the board doesn't all address the public, or why the president is the one to address the public. It's because we follow our rules and regulations. It's within either our bylaws or our regulations, and that's why the president is the one to address the public. So it is 9:50. If you are joining virtually, as Mr. Capello already typed in the comments, please type your name, and we're going to hear first people who have joined us in person, and then we will move on to the people who are joining virtually. So please just step up to this microphone here. Please push the button to speak. Yes. Push the button to speak, identify yourself and your address, and then proceed.
Hi, Nancy Fagan, 288 Morris Avenue. Thank you, Dr. Forte, for writing me back on my email. I brought my son here today. He wanted to speak and just let you know how he felt about the mask situation. Receiving this, it does make me happy that you're considering it, but I really feel that you need to take the parents, survey the parents or talk to the parents and let them make decisions for their own kids. Like I said, last time I was here, this is not a one size fits all. I have a child that has services through the school and he needs special things too. It's not all about my child has a health issue and everybody should wear a mask. Well, my child has a health issue and he shouldn't have a mask on, and nor should his peers and his teachers and his speech therapists. They shouldn't have masks on. So that's what I have to say. So he's a little nervous. So, and he did lose his game. So, okay. Go ahead.
I'm Douglas Giese, and about school with the mask every day. When I get in school, like the first period, my mask is so hot I have to pull it down, and also one of my friends keep on telling me to pull it up, and I keep on pulling it down because it's just like so hard to breathe. And whenever I'm with my speech therapist, she can't hear my voice, and also the mask gets stuck in my mouth sometimes.
Anything about the bus?
And also about the bus, it's so hot in there that I take my mask down, and
It's okay. It's just hot.
so,
Yeah, just hot. Okay. Thank you. Say thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for coming to speak to us. We appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us.
Good job.
Cool uniform too.
Are there other members of the public present here in the room who would like to address the board?
Marietta Cohen, 2 Van Dorn Place. Thank you for the amendments that you made to the plan. I'm just curious, at what point will you, it said you will consider it. Is the voting that's happening on the plan tonight is with that verbiage just like that? There's not going to be any room for, I mean, I know that things could change, and I know that Murphy's announcement late this afternoon, which said that masking by students will not be mandatory in school buildings unless their district decides to require masking as part of its own protocols. So that wording is a little bit different than the wording that you just gave us. So I'm just curious where we stand with that, and also at what point will that change? Do we need to be in a different zone? Do we need to reach a certain number of positive cases?
I think, thank you, Mrs. Cohen, for your questions. What we're going to do is collect all public comments, and then the board and the administration will answer what they feel is appropriate here at the meeting, or they will be able to get back to you.
Okay, and I just want to make 2 comments about things that were brought up tonight. I agree with you, Mr. Anderson, about the website. I've gotten to know the website really well. It's somewhat user-friendly, but it could definitely use some revamping. And also the part about involving the community and parents as it relates to the board and to the issues. I think it would be so helpful to be able to have information not have to wait till the next board meeting to have answers to our questions and have questions and concerns addressed in a more timely manner. Not to say that, meaning if it were more real time, it would be, I think, a little more helpful for parents to make certain decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Donna Marie Szynski, 64 Pier Place. So I represent the low-income community, and I'm very grateful for the whole vaccine clinic thing. Thank you very much for that, because, I was concerned about it. I know you guys did say that you were going to have a parent there, and but it still was a concern, because as a low-income Pier Place resident, I can go to ShopRite. I can go to CVS and Walgreens. But I'm also here for a couple of things you guys said beforehand was interesting. The IEP for dyslexia doesn't start until 4th grade. So when you were saying about the academics, like and I agree, because if kids are going to be bored, that's not cool either. But my daughter really struggled with reading, and we all knew she had dyslexia because it runs in my family. 4th grade. So I don't know if that's something you guys can help. My 13-year-old wanted to be in school, Steve. She wanted to be in school. She gets severe panic and anxiety attacks. And the bullying, that was her IEP case manager. That's why I told her not to say the name. And I think everybody got my email on that. As everybody here probably is aware, if they listened to the last meeting or everybody present, I have autoimmune. I'm the most vulnerable. My kids don't need to protect me. Adultification, where children are treated as being more mature than they actually are by reasonable social standard of development. Holding children responsible for protecting adults by being vaccinated with experimental gene therapies or masks. That's adultery. And if my child can't ride the bus, what's going to be her accommodation? If you guys don't require masks, and my child can't ride the bus because she can't handle the mask, heat or no heat, air conditioning or no air conditioning. She loves shopping in Target. She has panic when we walk in the door. There's been times I had to leave. Sometimes she can last 5 minutes, sometimes 10. Sometimes we don't get in the door. So I can't control her body. And a school nurse at Valley View confirmed that, yes, children are having problems. And yes, they are going to the nurses. I'm not going to say her name because I don't want her condemned like I was on social media or anything like that. I'll take the hit for her. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other members of the public here in the room that would like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, are there members of the community on our virtual meeting who would like to address the board?
So far none.
Okay, so it is 9:59. I think we will close public comment at this. Oh, hold on. So we have a letter from a member of the public. We have a member from the public, so we're not going to close public comment section yet because there was an email that was asked to be read. Hold on. Okay. So this parent writes, I'm a parent of 2 children in the school district and have lived in Denville for over 16 years. I'm a federal court-approved marketing and statistics expert and patented inventor. I am currently an administrator for the Denville Resident Emergency Resources page on Facebook with over 1,200 members. I pride myself in providing an online source for residents of Denville to find the fact-based information about COVID-19. During the early stages of the pandemic, I designated personal protective equipment, PPE, that was used by over 1,000 people. I worked with a trauma surgeon and professor from the University of Pennsylvania to design filtration systems to use during surgery. My designs were used by firefighters, doctors, EMTs, and ICU nurses. This work is the subject of an upcoming paper in a medical journal. I state all this not because you should listen to me more than any other parents. On the contrary, I know enough to understand you should not listen to me. I am not a professional epidemiologist. I did not go to medical school. The Denville Department of Health, the New Jersey Department of Health, excuse me, and the Centers for Disease Control are staffed with career experts who have the depth of knowledge and experience to make recommendations. Parents, myself included, do not. Let me be clear. Scientific recommendations should always be challenged, especially as new data is received. But these challenges must be done by other experts in the proper venue. That's the scientific process. A Board of Education meeting is not the proper venue. To my knowledge, the school board is not only following state laws, but also going above and beyond to reach out to experts. They've deferred to the experts of the Denville Department of Health. They've worked with HVAC and air quality experts. They've worked with doctors at St. Clair's. When I had suggestions about presenting the number of cases and quarantined individuals more clearly as an expert in marketing and statistics, they listened and incorporated most of the suggestions. I've heard claims of a lack of transparency on following the science, but I haven't found that to be the case. The district told parents they were using objective guidance from the State Department of Health using the weekly COVID-19 activity level report. These metrics were adapted from the CDC's standard surveillance methods and made available to the public. The state is subdivided into 6 regions, highlighted how every region and district have different considerations. Just because another state or district is removing masks doesn't mean it should be done universally. As of now, almost every restriction has been lifted for vaccinated individuals. We are making significant progress. The last hurdle is the availability of vaccines for children under the age of 12. Once every parent can optionally vaccinate their child, I believe we will be in a position to completely reopen. Pfizer has provided guidance that the vaccine for children under 12 could be available via emergency use authorization, EUA, in September, so any disruption to the upcoming school year would be minimal. I understand the latest data suggests the risk of younger children is minimal. I suspect this will be a future source of contention on mitigation strategies before the vaccine is available, but I defer to the experts. Over the past school year, our nurses, contact tracers, school board, superintendent, and all the scientists and medical experts have kept our children safe and allowed us to open as much as we did. Denville had in-person classes 5 days a week while also offering an all-virtual option. We had 0 in-school transmissions for the entire school year because of their tireless work. Positive cases from the community spread were contact traced and quarantined to protect all our children, and it worked. I'm confident that our schools will return to normal more quickly, normal is in quotes, if the Board of Ed continues to follow the experts. So that was asked to be read during our public meeting by a member of the public. I'm just going back into our meeting to make sure. Yes, there's no public comments here. There's no one in the room who has public comments. So it is 10:04. We are going to close the first public comment section and move on with the remaining of our agenda. Oh, thank you, Dr. Hollis.
I was just going to answer the one. We do a universal screening by law for dyslexia in first grade. So every student is screened. And if you have any first graders, you probably received a letter just in the last 2 weeks that said your child is at low risk or at moderate risk or at high risk. And then if those are students that are at risk, they go on to further testing. Now, this law came into place, I believe, 4 years ago. So before that, or if you were tested or screened in another district and moved here, it might have fallen through the cracks. You don't have to have an IEP with dyslexia. We have many students who just use Orton Gillingham reading services, but do not have an IEP. But then there are other students that definitely have an IEP that's included. So we do screen. However, students present in different ways, and we want to make sure that if there are any services you're not getting, that we absolutely move forward to make sure that you are getting. And sometimes kids present even in 8th grade that somehow that they were masking really well, and then we find out that when the work gets so difficult that they can't cope anymore, like their coping mechanisms don't work anymore. But some good kids are unbelievable at memorizing thousands and thousands of words and fooling us. But we do the screening in 1st grade because it is the law, and we do catch many students. And sometimes it's the opposite. The parents get the notice and then they get very worried that, does my child have dyslexia? But it really is just a screening. But I hope you are getting all the assistance, and of course we can help you with that. Thanks.
Okay, and there was 2 questions I can answer too. One was on the mask decisions, because we wrote that we would consider it. There's not a person here or in the district that doesn't want a 100% normal school year. I know I've been around this long enough that if I write on here that we're not going to have masks and something changes and I have to have masks, it'll be worse than telling everybody right now we might need to wear masks. But there's not a person in the district that wants to wear a mask if we don't need to. The other one was a specific question about a mask, like for a specific student. So in the middle of the worst COVID part, we didn't make any exceptions. You had to wear the mask. And the real reason was nobody was vaccinated. I have some elderly staff, and I walk around the rooms and I see students 3 inches away from people, not 6 feet. And the kids had to wear the mask. That was the way it was. Things are different now. If there's an individual case, for example, the one you brought up, please you can contact me directly, or you can go to the principal, whoever you feel comfortable with, and we'll work out a plan. We pretty much said that all year. There, in the height of it, when we were in the orange and we were like closing all the time, they had to wear the mask. But we might be able to come up with an alternative that would help in a specific case. So give us a chance to try to work individually with that one case. Those are 2 questions I had. There was other things that were comments, and we appreciate those, but those were the 2 direct questions, unless I missed one. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Old business, action to be taken. Mr. Capello, would you move us through that, please?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Bear with me 1 second. If there are no objections under old business, I would like to move items A, B, and C. These are the Treasurer of School Money and Board Secretary report from May 21. We also have education reports, report of student enrollment, the report of the health office, and our Denville Schools 21-22 school reopening plan for the Federal American Rescue Plan Act. And lastly, we have our minutes from our work session and executive session May 10th and our regular and executive session May 24th.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Capello. Thank you, Mr. Lohr. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lohr,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Moving on to new business, action to be taken under personnel. Mr. Anderson, would you move us through that, please?
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move under new business, A, personnel items 1 through 20, 19 and 20, as well as a RR through WW, are listed on the addendum to the agenda. These items include, obviously, new hires, resignations, retirements, leaves, extra pay, salary adjustments, as well as several other personnel movements, hires, as well as some leave of absences.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Comments, questions, concerns?
I would like to congratulate Mrs. Zeleny for moving across the guide for next year.
Thank you, Dave. Congratulations, Mrs. Elney.
I'd like to just note on item number 11, just for the public's notification, there were several staff members. We discussed this as a board. There were several staff members that had to use sick days due to in-school exposure to COVID, and then they could not come to work. So there were 3 staff members we found as going through that we are reinstating their sick days based upon the fact that those were in-school exposures to COVID-19. Not transmission, but in-school exposures.
Dr. Cullis, I have a question about one of your merit goals. You said earlier we had the same, I didn't catch if it was the same number or the same percentage of students that struggled virtually versus in person. Was that a total number of students, or was it a percentage of students that was the same?
It's not. I didn't correlate it that way. There is no correlation. Like, you could not look at the data and say that those that were in virtual struggled more or those who were in person struggled more. Like, so it really depended on the grade level and the class and the level of academics. So I really couldn't make a statistical statement that was accurate.
Thank you.
We should also probably point out, since it's now in the public, is that we can congratulate Todd McCabe on being on track to be named the vice principal at Riverview once his certifications are all squared away.
Congratulations, Mr. McCabe.
Seeing no more comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Luer,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Okay, on to instruction and programming. Mr. Capello, would you move us through that, please?
Absolutely. If there are no objections under instruction and program, I would like to move item 1, which is a comprehensive virtual training for Orton Gillingham training for one of our teachers at Lakeview.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Capello. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Luer,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. On to finance. Mr. Kim, would you move us through finance, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. If there are no objections, I'd like to move Section C, Finance, numbers 1 through 16 as a block, bringing special attention to item number 2, where the capital reserve, as Mrs. Gorowski pointed out, of the capital reserve transfers not to exceed $5 million, as well as number 3, the maintenance reserve, as Mrs. Gorowski pointed out, not to exceed $2 million, as well as number 7, the submission of the ARP Act and the Esser application, which means that we'll be accepting a grant award of $327,557. That's it.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Who was that?
Mr. Cass?
I think I might have snuck in ahead of him.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lohr. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
No on the 2 milk fund checks. Yes on everything else.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Lohr?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes, on to operations. Mr. Cass, would you move us through operations, please?
Gladly. Under transportation, we have 4 items to move. And the first 2 are to approve parent transportation contracts to take their students to their children to school at a cost of $2,700 for one, $1,350 for the other. We have school buses to be sold to Hill Auto Exchange, the highest bidder in accordance with our bid document requirements. So we have school bus 177, 178, 179, and number 12 being sold. Item 1.4 is to approve the utilization of district school buses to transport students from Learner Limited LLC, Little Learner, at an hourly rate of $70 on the following dates: July 14th, July 28th, July 21, July 22, August 6th, and August 11th.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Lohr. Questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question about the school bus sales. Several years ago, we got what the board considered to be an extremely low bid for one of the buses, and we donated it to the Denville Fire Department for training purposes. The school bus number 12, that's $647. Would it be better for the town, for the district, if we donated that bus to the fire department? Is that something we can look into?
Mrs. Wagner, can I clarify that? Mr. Lohr, the first 3 buses are 54 passenger buses, and number 12 is a 24 passenger bus.
Yeah, I understand, but at this point, we can't use them anymore by state law, and that's one we're getting less money for. I'm not criticizing the bid. It's the best one we had, but my question is, would the fire department benefit more from it than the district would benefit from, $647, since we have in fact done this previously?
Shall we pull that one?
I think they were happy we gave them the 1 bus. It actually takes a little bit of work for us because we have to take all the fluids out and anything that's dangerous, and then they move it over there. But they haven't asked for a second one.
But Steve, if I remember correctly, that bus was not usable. That's why we couldn't get any money for it. It was flooded or something, right?
Yeah, there was a small fire in it actually.
Yeah.
Not with kids on it. When it was sitting there, somehow there was some kind of small fire.
And Dave, I don't know too, the small buses, the fire department may not find as much value on training on them. It's a reasonable question. It may cost somebody $600 to tow that thing up to Mine Hill.
I seem to remember that having this exact conversation a year or 2 ago after we donated the bus, and I thought the answer was they did it, they were happy. It wasn't something they were necessarily interested in doing again. But I know that was like a year ago.
Yeah, I think the next go around, Damaris, we'll put it out there again. It was only a little while ago, so we'll have more buses that are going to expire. Maybe we can ask the county if they want it to. I agree with you, Dave. In theory, getting 16 for our firefighters to train on something that would really benefit our students if they're in the event that there was an awful thing that they needed to actually evacuate kids. That's great. So next go around, we'll check with the fire department.
Fair enough.
Other comments?
The other question I had was the dates for the for the little learner busing. It goes July 14th, July 28th, and then it goes back to July 21st and 22nd. The 28th seems out of order. Is that the right date?
That is the correct date.
Thank you.
I'm glad we were able to help him too, by the way, because he, at the last minute, took kids this year when we knew we were going to be doing a half day, and he was able to offer a program to our students. So it's great that we're able to help him a little bit too. Yeah, with Little Learner Academy, which is right on Route 46, when we knew we were going to do a half day, we knew that we needed to provide, we wanted to be able to provide some childcare for parents. And pretty much anytime I ask him for anything, he's right there to do it. So it was great that we're able to help him too.
Seeing no more comments, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Yes.
Mr. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Luer,
Yes.
Mr. Kim,
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner.
Yes. Okay, we are at good of the cause, which includes committee reports, correspondence, discussion items. The discussion items that are listed on the agenda, I believe, are the discussion items from last meeting. So some of them are relevant, but some of them were already, such as the recap of the responsive practices for student equity was already completed by Mrs. Gould at our last meeting. Under discussion, I just want to mention that
You're talking about for the superintendent's evaluation. I believe that's the State Department of Ed probably did that.
Okay, so we were talking about the superintendent's evaluation as a board, which is typically due on July 1st, and that deadline was pushed back to July 31st. So now we have data from Dr. Cullis to support not only her merit goals, but the goals for the district. So Dr. Forte has provided us with data as well, and we'll have time to review that as a board, or review that individually, rather, I should say. Please send me an email about your vote on that last item that we were talking about in executive session for while we were waiting for data. And then Dino and I can meet with Dr. Forte to do his evaluation prior to July 31st. So I would ask that you send me your responses by July 15th.
How about these for highlights? Goal setting 21-22, strategic plan 2022 to 2027 will be created later in the year. And the Board of Education president answers questions from the public regarding the reopening plan.
Yeah, Mrs. Anderson, no, Mrs. Wagner, I apologize. Do you need those responses before our next board meeting, which is July 12th? Or, okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, seems good. I have one item. In light of what happened at our last meeting, I reviewed our civility policy. It's policy 9202. And I know, as some of you did after that meeting, I called our school nurses the next day to apologize for, what happened. Also, obviously, to congratulate them for the award they were here to accept, but also to apologize for what transpired on their way out. What disturbed me the most was that the nurse I spoke to said, well, thank you. We appreciate the thought, but this unfortunately is something we're used to every day. I think that's incredibly sad. And I think it's a bad state of affairs. We have a civility policy. Our staff should not be punching bags. The community needs to treat, all of us and all of them with respect. So what I'd like to propose is we review the civility policy we have now, maybe in committee. Maybe we look at having a refresher for our staff so they know that they can cut off communications if they're not appropriate, if they're being harassed. I think maybe our staff is being a little too forgiving, for lack of a better term. So if everybody's okay with that, I would like to propose that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I would say personnel, but that would be my thought. What do you think?
You're on that committee, so it's perfect.
You're the chairperson.
Okay, so we are going to add the district civility policy to be reviewed by the Personnel Committee. Thanks for bringing it up. And I just want to point out that things that you brought up and mentioned, Dr. Forte mentioned in his end of the year video address. So this has certainly been something that's been on the district's mind. And I know that a number of the members of the public reached out to the nurses, as Mr. Capello said. So thank you for supporting them. They really deserve it.
As the board liaison with the Denville Green Team, I would like to bring to the public's attention that the Green Team is attempting to sponsor a shred day at the Denville Public Works. However, we are having trouble getting enough volunteers to make it happen. Anybody who would like to assist with such a thing, please contact the Green Team.
Dave, can their contact information be found on the website?
Not on our website at the moment, but I think I can pull it up in a minute.
No, I mean, does the Green Team have a website or a link on the town's website? Certainly not on the district's website.
I believe they have a link on the town's website.
And I think they have a Facebook page as well.
Okay, so at this time, we are going to open our second public comments section. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have a letter to read from Mrs. Gould.
Dear fellow board members, district staff, and members of the public, I apologize for being unable to attend tonight, but I have an out-of-state family commitment. I thank those of you who came out to speak tonight, and I will be watching the video upon my return, so I get to hear your comments personally, even if it's after the vote on the reopening plans has been decided. This has been a trying year for all of us, and while I feel our district has chosen the best solutions as a whole, I believe that not a single family in the district has been unaffected by the COVID-19 crisis in some way, and we will have had to compromise to keep each other and ourselves safe. I would like to remind you the past year has done two things. It has exacerbated some mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, agoraphobia, and more, sometimes combined with serious health concerns or immunocompromised individuals. And it has forced us to embrace a more accessible platform for meetings via online methods. I and my fellow board members take your comments and concerns very seriously. Please do not dismiss others' actions or beliefs as being irrational, fear-based, or otherwise not legitimate because you don't believe the same. I consider that online access to meetings such as ours, which even in the before times board members could call in if they couldn't be present, is a huge improvement in accessibility and equity for many who struggle for various reasons, both for the board and district staff as well as the community. Our and your time and presence is valid, whether it is digitally or physically. I trust that my fellow board members will take tonight's vote on the reopening plans with careful thought and consideration to what is best district-wide for our community. I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Sincerely, Katie Gould.
Okay, so now we are going to open to public comment section at 10:28. Yeah, 10:28. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. So 10:28, we're open to public comment section. If you are joining us virtually, please type your name in the comments and you will be acknowledged. If you are here in person, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and address the board. There's been a gentleman in the back who's been back here since the beginning of the meeting. Sir, I just want to let you know that we can't, if you want the public to see you, the public who's at home joining us virtually, the camera is from this computer here in the middle, aiming this way. So you're okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any public comments here in the room. I also don't see any public comments online. So I'm going to close public comment section at 10:30. Yeah, we do have a need for a short executive session, which we will not be voting on. Once we return to public section, there will be no further voting. So if
I
Mr.
would like to move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss personnel and legal issues. Minutes of this session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Laura. Thank you, Mr. Capello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, members of the public, for